Yo, what's up, everybody?
Hey, what's going on?
All right, we're good.
Episode 116. You okay, Austin? You all right over
I'm
there?
good. I had the music playing on my computer screen, which I didn't know if it came through on the podcast, but hopefully it didn't. It's coming through my headphones. But what up, everybody? Thank you for joining us. Episode 116. We have a really nice, good, interesting episode today. We hope all you enjoy it, and we're at a different time, so
It's nice and it's good and
it's
it's
nice
interesting.
and it's good. It's interesting. It's
Yeah,
fascinating. It's all the above. Everything you want out of a podcast, we got it for you today.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm really fascinated with this guest and been following him a bit lately on his YouTube channel and his perspective on a lot of things and just digging into his stuff. And yeah, this should be a really fun episode. So looking forward to it. And yeah, stoked. But before we get into it, I have to do my thing. I have to do my spiel. If you're watching this for the first time, please like us on our social media pages. Go to our Instagram, give us a follow. Go to our YouTube page, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Please leave a comment, share it. We have iTunes. If you like what you're listening to, give us a 5-star review, give us a comment. All that stuff helps. The interactions help boost us in the algorithmic process. We have a Patreon. You can be a Patreon for as little as $3 a month. When you become a Patreon, you get access to special content, exclusive content. We have Inside Outs, which are trick tips. We have 3 pieces that Austin just filmed one recently and put
In
up,
the
which is
mesmers,
in the mesmers, which is
the
really cool,
mezzies.
and the messies. And yeah, so we watch sections with our guests afterwards, and they have commentary on the sections. And every month we do a random drawing that you could win something from our online store, whether it be a mug, a T-shirt, or a hat. So please consider being a Patreon. Like I said, you can be one for as little as $3 a month, and you get access to our little Patreon community, which is pretty fun. So yeah, that's my spiel. And if you're watching us live, please hit the like button.
Little, but it's growing. We have like 315 or so Patreon supporters, that's pretty sick. That's huge. So thank you everyone for supporting. We have a few new people to shout out this week. We have a big shout out to Daniel Zadarin, Shane Coburn, which is pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Shane Coburn.
Shane Coburn, yeah, fucking
Yeah.
crazy.
Nice. Mind Game,
Yeah,
for those
Mind
who
Game
don't know.
Medium, yeah, hell yeah.
Medium,
Dozer, Channel Cross, Jonathan, Rechopi, depending on where he's from, Rekiopi, I don't know how to say that, sorry. Matt Taylor, Marcin, Derawanko, and this isn't even like a name, Shapostekud. Maybe it is a name. Shapostekud.
Might be a name.
Might be
Austin.
a name.
Come on.
I don't know. I don't know if it is though. I looked into it, tried to get the real name out of like the email or something like that. But yeah, thank you all for supporting our Patreon. We're also adding something new to the Patreon, which we're starting with this episode. We know since we're doing this live, not everybody can watch live and ask questions to our guests if they want to. So if you're a Patreon supporter and you're in a different time zone, you can't watch it live, you're able to ask a question, and we're gonna do some of them on the show starting today. So if you're a Patreon supporter, keep that in mind for next time, just in case you can't watch it live and you're interested in our guests. So we're going to open up later on to some of our Patreon questions. And thank you all for supporting us on Patreon. It's huge, and it helps us going. We have a WTF with Mr. Cameron Talbot with, oh, my black didn't go on in the background. Bam, there we go. This is some other, what do you even call this? Fakey 540 Dark Side Topsoul stall. I wish I had a slow-mo of this.
Yeah, that looks like a fakey 540 like diagonal drift over to the top soul stall. That was, yeah, pretty sick. Cameron is always doing some like next level stuff. Him and Sean Keen just on that future stuff right now. So it's really cool to see him get the WTF of the week. It's an old clip, but it's cool to see up there. So shout out Cameron Talbot.
Yeah, it's cool to show that. I mean, and they both write for Blank, as we know, which is a sponsor of the show currently. So Blank, thank you for sponsoring this episode. Everyone check out the new Sean Keen Pro Model Skate. I believe it's out now, and they're doing another run of them again soon if you missed out on the pre-orders. But let's run this little ad from Blank.
Wow.
Everybody check out Blank. Follow them on Instagram at Blank Rolling Products. We also have a link to their website in the description to check out more details about the new Sean Keen Pro Model Blank Skate. There you go.
That topsole, the back salve was
solid, right?
Wow. That's crazy.
Full commitment on that one.
Yeah, he was flying. But yeah, shout out to our sponsor, Blank. Do we have some? You did the Patrons a shout out.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else?
Yes. Well, if anybody wants to become a sponsor for 2022, we have an updated sponsor package list for 2022. So a few people already expressed interest. If you could sponsor episodes, you could sponsor by monthly, however you want to do it. But get at us, send us an email, shoot us a message on Instagram. Let us know. We'll send you info on that because if you want to support the show, we love talking about, companies that are willing to put money back in the industry as well. So it's great for both of us. So if you're interested in sponsoring the show, get at us. That's all I got to say about that.
What a pitch, man. I like that. It's great for both of us. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. And if you want to do it, get at us.
We don't have to get any lawyers involved. It's mutually beneficial. We'll do
one hand washes the other. You know what I'm talking about? All right, cool. Both wash the face. Cool. Yeah, very cool.
One last thing before we move on to our guests is I just want to shout out the Blade Havasu 8, which is the 8th annual. I can't believe it's 8th annual already. Blade Havasu trip in Arizona. It's February 25th to the 27th this year. It's in Lake Havasu City in Arizona. So everybody on the West Coast, or if you're not on the West Coast, you want to fly out, drive out for that. I might make it depending on how my money situation is. So it's an awesome trip, awesome skate park, weekend camping trip at Lake Havasu City at an awesome skate park. I've been there many times. Billy was there also last year. We made a fun trip out of it. So everyone check it out, February 25th to the 27th. They have shirts relaunching soon in their website, which I have linked below. And also they have a Facebook community page if you're looking to find somebody to travel with or whatever. I have a link to the Facebook group as well in the video description below. So Blade Havasu 8, check it out. Hopefully you get to see you there.
Very cool. Yeah, I remember going last year. I was like, my knee that was just in the beginning when I was like having a knee injury, so I wasn't able to skate there. But I'll tell you, that is a heck of a skate park. It is massive.
It is.
Yeah.
It's worth it for that alone. Yeah, especially if you're coming from the East Coast like I am. You want to get out of the winter. It's a nice, cheap trip. Flights are really cheap now. So make it a point to go out there. It's really cool.
Well, before we get into our guests, I'll just say I won't be there, sadly.
Okay.
It's my brother's bachelor party, which means,
bachelor parties.
That's a little personal. That's a little personal information between me and you, but I'm sharing with the world.
Between me and you and everyone else watching. No one else, though.
Yeah. Cool. Let's get into our guest. I'm really stoked to talk to this guy.
Hell yeah! Everybody, please welcome JimmyTheGiant. We got him in here.
I knew my head was out of shot. I knew it. I sat there for 5 minutes paranoid that my head was going to be out of frame, and it was.
Thank goodness you have the swivel chair, so you can just fix it really quick.
Yeah, I'm getting the angles down.
Swivel back and forth.
Yeah. For you who don't know, watching, there's a very small little window of my there. That is me now in shot, but I could be out here, so I'll do my best.
You're looking great. Don't worry.
It's three of us, so it's a little tight, but it's good because it makes us look thin,
It does. Yeah, it's taking a lot of the Christmas pounds are coming right off.
Well, it's really nice to meet you, and thanks for taking the time to do the show. And it's been really cool to see everything that you've been doing, especially like in relation to skating, because it's really cool to see the outside perspective. But first and foremost, could you give a little intro to yourself and as how we know you have a parkour background and a YouTube background, but a brief bio introduction to who you are?
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words, man. I am called JimmyTheGiant. I've been doing YouTube as JimmyTheGiant for maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So originally, I used to have a parkour brand, and it was called Morera Gang. The way brands work in parkour, and this is something I probably want to chat about later, is quite different to rollerblading. So it's like no one makes a penny, no one makes any money, but we all act like we got these businesses. So that's what it was. Over time, it didn't work, failed. And so I was like, I want to do something. I want to make some content. I had a few ideas for like parkour videos. So just made them, changed the channel to JimmyTheGiant, and they just worked. Like it just took off. I had a bit of help from like a big team. They did a video with me. And so for the last year and a half, I was kind of doing tons of parkour content. And then I got to a point where I was like, kind of just want to do like other things, like different topics, different stories, different extreme sports. And through doing that, I was like starting to see more and more sports I just never really known much about, never thought much about. And I come across rollerblading. And then that's kind of like the current massive interest. And so I'm just like really obsessed with it. And I find it really interesting. So it's very cool to speak to you guys and be on this, really.
That's cool. It's funny, when I was looking into some of your videos and looking into some of the backstories, like I saw the one about the one man who might have destroyed parkour and who almost destroyed parkour. And I was like, wow, there's brands. And that was fascinating to me because, when you look at like skateboarding or blading, there's obviously like the product, like you need the skateboard or the blades, and you can't do it without that. And parkour, it's like, well, it seems like you can just kind of go and do it if you got a pair of like Nikes on or Reeboks or something like that. But it was cool to see.
That's the problem, man.
Yeah,
that's the problem. We've got nothing tangible to sell you. We're selling you an idea. We're selling you a pipe dream. It's like we've got nothing to sell you. So everyone like makes clothes, and that's kind of where everyone went. Yep. But then I think like now maybe some people are having better ideas. Like making films is a big one. I'm curious to see if rollerblading's gone down that route, because more and more parkour brands are realizing just putting out a Gildan t-shirt with your logo on it, it's probably not going to make you a living. It's probably not going to be able to pay your team a living. So people that were putting out content on YouTube, like a couple of people were popping off, making livings off of it, but like it's few and far between. And we have all these guys that are just like insane, like doing next level, mind-blowing stuff that can't make a penny off of it. So now brands are starting to get a bit clever and like privately releasing films. So, you're paying like a couple of pounds, couple of dollars, like $5, you get to watch it. Then maybe they release clothes with it. And that's becoming like the sort of new meta, like the new way of doing things. And so it's really interesting seeing what you guys do, because like I didn't really realize the scope of your Patreon, didn't really realize like the sponsors and stuff like that, because parkour, I don't know, like we don't have the same industry and we don't have the same business mind. And as you identified, like we don't have a product to sell you. So it's like so hard to make money in our sport. And I don't know if rollerblading is easier. You might be able to tell me.
Well, yeah, like to your point, like, it's when you're looking at like the non-product aspect, like the thing that you have to offer, I guess, would be like the culture. So in the culture, you could like do that through the clothing and do it like that and through film. For me, when I was looking at like how do parkour people make money, and I was like, I guess maybe some of the top guys can be in some like Hollywood films, like flipping around like with Vin Diesel or something like that, like doing some XXX stuff. And you see that out there. So it's like, okay, maybe that could be like an area like for some opportunity, but it's
kind of like it's like a catch. It's the phrase catch-22. I don't know if it's catch-22, but it's like if you go and do parkour in the films, you'll make money, like you'll make good money. But to do parkour in the films, you need to spend years getting onto the stunt registrar. Like I know someone who she's trying to get on it, and you need 5 different disciplines, at least in the UK, you need 5 different disciplines that you need like an expert qualification in. Like, so it could be karate, skydiving, parkour, blah, 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 blah. You need an expert level qualification to do it. Takes you a long time, takes you a lot of money. You finally get on this registrar, and then you're now in the films. Great. But you can't really do parkour out in the streets with your buddies, because if you like dust off your knee or like you roll your ankle, you're out of work. So it's like a really hard industry. And ultimately, you're not actually doing parkour. Like I know so many pros, like, because a lot of people have gone that way. And for some, that was like their dream. Like since a kid, that's what they wanted to do. They grew up on like Jackie Chan. They watched all that. And so for some, they did want to do that. But for a lot of guys, they get to that level and they're like, I don't want to be on a film set and doing all that. Like, so it's a real weird one. Our pro landscape is strange. Like we don't really have many people living off it. And when they do, the money is like exterior. So like the money comes from companies sponsoring them to appear in like an advert or like represent their brand or something like that. So it's not like rollerblading maybe different, where people are buying rollerblades that's supporting pros and stuff like that. It's not really that. That's going to make a fraction of your income. It's always from like exterior things.
Yeah. No, I think that is like the advantage that at least rollerblading did or could have. Like, there's the skate boot, there's the frame, the wheel, and all these things that you need in order to do it. And skateboarding, BMX has these same things: products, pegs, seats, handlebars, everything like that. And so those things, there's going to be just like you're going to be able to make some profit off those things. Just in order for people to be a part of it, they have to have those things. But I guess the problem with rollerblading is
joke. Sorry, man. I was just going to say, we used to always joke, like in the back in the day, we used to always joke about like parkour pads and protective equipment. And so like my old brand were kind of known as like being a bit funny, making memes and shit. And we like released this like mock commercial, like a parody commercial for parkour shin pads. We called them like the anti-shinning shields. And like we made this whole advert, and it was like a bit of a joke. But that's the thing, like there's just nothing you can sell anyone other than a t-shirt,
Well,
sneakers.
Maybe there's a maybe there's like a revolutionary, like one of the top guys can make a revolutionary product, like let's say like a glove with like a suction cup on it that completely changes the game. They're dropping down a roof and they put their hand on it and it swings them off, and everyone's like, oh my God, that's something so new. We all need it, or we're not even parkour people. And that's the thing that's going to make at least one guy some money.
What are you doing rollerblading? Your genius is being wasted on rollerblading. We need you in the parkour world. Some tacky products that we can just shot at people.
Ship
them into Walmart and make millions.
I'm just saying. No, because like in rollerblading, I think that happened. There was like some like when like the revolutionary products did come around, like mini wheels, for example. Those were like the things that ended up like kind of defining the sport and taking off. I'm kind of just being tongue in cheek with the what it could be in parkour, like, but it's
but you're right though. You're right, because like free running has started to see like people sell, like, I'm trying to think of a good example, like even like a towel, right? Like if it's a wet day or like it's spitting, you can like use a towel. So like, no one really thought about that. It's just how slow it's taken us 20 years to go. We could sell them a towel. It's like there's shit like that. So there are little things, and parkour shoes are a way, but like, it's so much money, and at the end of the day, like, you could just buy a pair of Adidas and it's going to be quarter the price. So it is definitely a future, and I think it's one of them things that's like, parkour is young, man, and it's going to take time for the industry to catch up. And it is going in a good direction. It feels slow, like when you see all these other sports, but it's always like a grass is greener situation, because as I started looking into these sports and hearing stories, and people were like, yeah, we don't make that much money. And it's like, even I did this video on BMX, which had some sort of like, some people argued with it, but the long and the short of it was the BMXers aren't making a killing. And, we would have all thought in parkour, like, it's BMX, so like obviously they're making a ton of money, but apparently it's not as easy as that. Skateboarding, similar, like maybe the pro skaters are not always making a ton. It's not all about money though, but at the end of the day, it's like you kind of want to see these like pros be rewarded for their skill, I suppose. But if it isn't valued in the marketplace, and it's not valued in the marketplace, we have to make that demand, and that just takes time, and it takes building culture. So
yeah, Jimmy, that's a struggle that we've been battling for like 20 years. So we're big in that too. But like the sport changes, times change too. Everything's online based. Everything's like influencer based too. I feel like now is the best time if you are a quote pro skater, quote pro parkour person, free runner, whatever you want to call it. Like now is the time to do it. You could be an influencer. You can make a YouTube channel like you do, a podcast. It is ways to base it around your brand. Patreon pages, stuff like that. Like there's ways to do it, to make it yourself, and in many ways,
be clever, isn't it?
Yeah, you got to be clever with it, and you have to like really put yourself out there. But generally, it's easier. You're not really relying on other people and other brands and other companies to do this, make these decisions for you. It's all up to you. It's all on you, and you can make it happen.
Yeah, and it's like, I think everyone probably looks at like the 90s as this kind of era where, like, especially for rollerblading, there must have been like those kids making hundreds of thousands of dollars and stuff, and it must always be heralded as like this insane era, but in reality, like, that was never going to last. And same for skateboarding. Like it was a sort of like, not a fad in a way, but it was a massive cultural thing. It's like video games now. I have this theory, and I kind of want to make a video on it one day, but I don't know if I reckon the esports community and all that will be as big as it is right now forever. And I think that might sound surprising, but it's just kind of like you look at how skateboard, like, you know, all these extreme sports sort of went like 90s, early 2000s, killing it for money. And then now it's like, yeah, it's just sort of, they've died down a bit, but it's got to this point where you're right. You just have to be smart, and it takes smart business people, which is great, really, because not every person who does like parkour is going to be an incredible athlete. Not everyone who does rollerblading is going to be the top rollerblader, but you might be kind of smart with making money. So it sort of means that other people can have a sort of a position in the community that can help people and help themselves. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see like parkour kind of come up in its own way, like, because I don't know, I see, and stop me if I'm wrong, but I see a lot of parallels between parkour and rollerblading, actually. I mean, I think there's different, obviously, distinctions that are different, but like some of like maybe the, I don't know, movements, flips, and like technicalities kind of remind me of one another in a way. Do you see any parallels there or no?
Yeah, big time. Like, yeah, I keep joking with my mates. Like, I've been doing parkour for so long, so it's like I can joke about this. But like, I always say rollerblading's like level 2 parkour. It's like once you've graduated parkour, you get the blades out, and then it's like, oh, because you can do like superhuman stuff because you're able to travel so much quicker. So if you're doing a jump, like a big running precision, as we call it, which is just like a jump, literally.
Yeah.
That you can maybe, I don't know, this is like really good going. You could maybe crack like, I don't want to say this and be wrong, but like maybe 19 feet or like 20 feet would be like top end. Whereas on blades, like if you look at that Eric Perkett clip where he done like that double, is it like the 12 flat 12 or whatever? That's like you would never be able to physically do that running. No matter, it could be Usain Bolt. You ain't clearing that. You ain't coming near. So it's like, it's like, yeah, you have this like extra boost from the wheels, and then there's so much crossover. Just I noticed as soon as I started with a friend, right, who doesn't have any parkour background, and he's cool. He's good at like moving around and shit, but when it comes to jumps, he has no idea. And when he comes to like falling over, no idea. And it's like I've been able to figure that out quite quickly, how to jump, and I've been able to, I can jump up to something that's like sort of like maybe like chest height sort of thing, maybe a bit lower. I'm kind of gassing myself up. I could jump up quite high and be all right, whereas he wouldn't be able to do that. And like falling over, I just know how to fall, and that's the biggest thing I've gained from parkour, is knowing how to fall. Also, kind of like ideas for lines. But yeah, there is so much crossover, especially when you see someone like Eugen Enin, and like you see he does all the sort of vaulty stuff, and I love that style because it's sort of like reminiscent of parkour.
Yeah, he like Eugen like actively incorporates parkour, and it's funny to see because like I sometimes when I watch those like really crazy parkour videos, I'm like, what would happen if these guys like learned to put on some blades and like didn't even like adapt to like our culture of skating or like the style or they just like do this on some blades, but just like it's just like I always like think about that, and you see like some bladers embrace that, like you see some like the Canadian guys doing that in Eugen, like you say, and it's really I think that kind of stuff's really good for crossing over, and maybe like if he, like you said, he's one of your favorite skaters, and maybe for that reason.
There was an era like in parkour where it was like 2008, 2009, where people coming into parkour had backgrounds in different sports. So it was like you would get into parkour because you did, I don't know, like break dancing, and you saw someone do parkour and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. So you'd get into it through that. So you had this whole background of break dancing, and you came to parkour and you were like, well, I can't do that. I can't do this thing that this person's doing, but I can be on my hands and do like jumps to my hands and shit. So when we had this like beautiful golden era where you were getting all these people with different backgrounds coming into the sport, and it completely changed the sport and the direction it went in because you had all these different ideas. Now parkour in the space it's in now is like it has kids that are getting into parkour as their first sport, so that they've never done anything prior to it. So parkour is kind of got a definitive almost like that is what parkour is. But I'd say in 2010s, it was a little bit maybe looser. Like two people doing parkour would look quite different, or they could look quite different. Now it's like there is sort of a defined style. And I think it's really interesting when you go into a sport having had a background in something else, because like, say you were an incredible contemporary dancer. I often like seeing like, you get, sometimes it's rare, but you get like women that come into parkour that have contemporary dance backgrounds, or like ballet or something like that. And they just move in a way that you've never seen before. And it's so sick because you just have this completely different attitude and you're like, oh, damn, I never thought about it like that. And there's a free runner who got into rollerblading, maybe like, I think he's always done it, but he started doing videos with rollerblade, and he's called Daniel Bakar, but he didn't do tons of stuff, but he did a bit. And you could just see like instantly this dude like had a different way of doing it because of his background. And it would be so interesting to see more and more people like coming into, like, I would like to see more free runners do rollerblading, because I just think you would see a very different like take on it.
No, absolutely. And I think that like most communities probably could be subjected to this, but like definitely ours has like in certain stages, or maybe even currently, but I think it's gotten like way more diverse in like the approach lately. But we've been like in this kind of box of what skating is and how we are defined as rollerbladers. Like, you know, we grind down rails, like we jump gaps, and at least in a certain area. And then now that's kind of been opening up over like the past few years. People are like more experimenting with like different styles and just kind of thinking out of the box a bit. And yeah, I think so. Like when I see like the free runner guys, I'm like, if these people just learn how to skate, then it's just like they could just take this stuff and go flying even further. Like maybe not like some of that crazy roof stuff where there's like, you know, a 300-foot drop off the roof sliding on the, like some of that like far distance, like Superman hand plan stuff, like to front flip, like what could be achieved in that. It'd probably like the most viral thing ever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it would be nuts, and you would get free runners doing roof gaps, like for sure. Roof gaps were a real thing for maybe the first, like from 2010, maybe a bit earlier than that, 2008, I would say, to like mid 2010s, and then like people don't do roof gaps as much now. It's kind of because it is just really it's one thing, like it's a gap between a roof. But I think if people got blades and they were parkour background, they would have to try a roof gap. Like someone would do it. Have you ever seen anyone do like a legit roof gap, like with a death drop on blades? Is that ever happened?
Yeah, no, yeah. There's been some, and like that go all the way back to like the old days. But in terms of like maximizing its potential, I would say no. Like there are some big ones. Yeah. Yeah, no, me too. Like I've always had like being like a New Yorker. I always had like this like kind of like cool fantasy of like you just see like one building to another building and just someone like doing like a bio 540, like a misty right through. But you know, you got to find the right spot and the right person. You got to be as careful as you can. But you know what I mean?
That's the thing, man. It's like there's always been a bit of a point of contention in parkour is the old roof gaps. Like it was always this thing. It was like this sort of unsaid thing that you can only do it when you've been doing it for a long period of time. You would never encourage someone new to the sport to ever even think about it. And like, it was kind of like, it was a weird one. Like when I was 20 and that, I was doing some stuff. I look back and I'm like, I would never fucking think of doing that again. Mm-hmm. And like, the thing is, it's like, you know, you're 20, you're ballsy, and you're just like, you're up for it. You don't care. And then you look back and you're like, damn, man, like it could have just been a slippy takeoff. So it's one of them ones like you don't want to encourage people to do it, but at the same time, you know, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, totally.
That's very common with us too. We used to always look back at shit like 10, 15 years ago and like stuff that we wouldn't do, like roof gaps or huge drop rails and hammers and stuff like that. It's stuff that you just like, it was of its time and of its era, and people can still do it now. Personally, I'm not trying to do shit like that, but you know, there's still that space in it in skating for that. I'm sure in parkour, there are still some people probably doing roof jumps and shit like that, but it's another direction that's way more welcoming because people coming into parkour, I'm sure, and skating too, they don't want to necessarily see their kids jumping off of roofs off the bat and stuff like that. You know, it's more lightweight, more welcoming stuff to do.
I found it interesting that like the mushroom blading, like the wizard blading guys were kind of new in a sense. Like I would have thought, like, because forgive me for my ignorance, but I'd have thought that would have been like old school rollerbladers would have probably had that similar-ish style because it would have been taken from I don't know, like ice skating, maybe, like, because it's kind of like some of the stuff they do, they're like spinning around and doing all these like slides and stuff. To me, it's like, how did that take so long for people to kind of popularize? Because I think it's so sick what they do. And I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And it's sort of like that really adds variety to a line. Like, I feel like Eugen Enin's part in that recent video, he was like sort of doing a bit of that stuff. And it was like between these other things. So he'd like do maybe some traditional, like aggressive thing. And then he would do all this. And then it just like tied it together so nicely. And it's like, how has that taken that long to figure out?
That's an excellent point.
No, it's true. It's true, and I can give you my theory on that. Before blading got into the area of like aggressive, it was like this rec thing where people were using it to like do off-season hockey and some people off-season skiing, like you've discovered in your videos. And people, I think, were more embracing the rolling aspects of it during that because it was such a new thing. When it went to aggressive, and then there was like this kind of, aggressive was young, and there was like, skateboarders who had been skating for however long at the park, and it was a bit of a rivalry came to be. I think a lot of the people in aggressive, as we spoke about this with Joey McGarry on our podcast, but we're trying to like distance ourselves from that kind of stuff, those kind of movements, and just be like, we're like actually like super, it was like hyper masculine, like, or as like, as Joey McGarry said, like, look how masculine we are. Look how
heterosexual we are.
So it was like, we
just put a fucking base.
Yeah. So I think there was like a more like, whether it was conscious or subconscious, like pushed by companies or not, that was kind of like the ethos.
I'm kind of picturing it now. Like, you've got some guy, he's like everyone else in the park's like hammering like these massive rails. They're doing like these gangster shit. And you got your boy doing like fairy spins, he's like spinning around. He's got his hands up. I can see why you might not do it. Yeah. That's the cool thing. I feel like nowadays people are a bit more embracive of like, I don't know. It's like, I get it. Cause I think back in the day, it was like everything was kind of lame if it looked, like the mainstream way of doing something or something like that. It's probably got some kind of tie in with that. And so it's kind of like lame. And if you were seen to do that, but now it's like people, I think they've eased off on that attitude a little bit. And then now it's just sort of a bit more open because parkour had a very like, I don't know, it had like a moment where there was a lot of attitudes behind what was like cool and what wasn't cool. And like, it depended entirely on like the clique you were in almost. Like in my clique, in like my circle where I did parkour, if you were seen to do, I don't know, a flip, literally like a front flip, people would like laugh at you, they'd like scoff at you. It's like, oh, that shit's so lame, like you're being a gymnast. And then now it's like the stuff that people do with flips is like the impressive thing. And so it's funny how the attitudes change and just become a bit more embracing and I suppose open-minded to like different takes on it.
Yeah, no, it's funny because it's like, I think at that maybe parkour had the same experience like with the don't do the flips, but there's like this like struggle to like really define what it is that you are in that space. Like this is what we are. But it's funny that thing that you do to define what you are is also the thing that kind of prevents you from growing outward because that diversity in like approaches is the thing. And like that helps it grow, like incorporates other styles and techniques. Like, like with skating, and we were like pushing, like trying to jump the biggest stuff, do like the biggest drop rail and like do like the gnarliest switch up or whatever. One of my friends, I think astutely pointed out that like, we did all that stuff and Eric Perquette jumped like, that 30 feet thing. And then people were still like, these fruit booters are lame. So it's like, well, might as well.
You just can't win, man.
Yeah. It's like, well, might as well have fun. Right. Like, it's like, well, if whatever it is, you can't win anyway, you could do like the crazy. So it's like, I think everyone threw up their hands and was like, let's just like explore and have fun. And it's weird that was the thing that ended up like helping push like the growth of it a little bit. And maybe that would be the same case in parkour.
Yeah. I think you made me think of William Spencer. He's like a skateboarder who stunt doubled Spider-Man. Don't know why it took me so long. I made a whole documentary on him. And he, so he had this time where he was like, he literally got like not ostracized, but just people would chat shit on him doing stuff. And he was like mixing parkour with skateboarding. It was legit. Like there was nothing even like, I can see why someone might think doing like spins on rollerblades is slightly lame. I can understand vaguely, but what he was doing was like just gnarly. It just looked sick. And yet still, because what he was doing was different, people were like, oh, this is circus tricks, man. This ain't real skateboarding. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, he goes on to be like an icon and whatever. But like, it is weird. Like, I wonder how many people listen to that. I don't know, actually, because maybe that refines people, because I think sometimes that gives people like a fire, because the way he explained it was because everyone was so like on his case about it, that made him like, nah, fuck you, I'm going to do me, I'm going to like do it as well as I can. Whereas maybe if it was super accepted, perhaps he wouldn't have pushed as hard. It was also the same for Ryan Williams, scooter BMX dude. He used to get clowned on for being a scooter kid, like absolutely hounded.
Oh, is this the Australian?
Yeah. Like he's on Nitro Circus.
Yeah, the Nitro Circus kid.
With, like,
he was rollerblading too. He was doing like double or triple backflips or something. Like it was something crazy.
Dude, like I saw he posted a random clip the other day. Like that's his original sport. So when he was really little, he had blades, and like planning to do a video with him at some point. But so he did like this Webster. I don't know what you guys call it, but like he was just pumping a bowl. And then when he come up on the back part, he did like a front flip inwards there, like just a casual throwaway clip on his Instagram. And I was like, damn, like he's just legit. He could so easily be a good rollerblader. And I'm really surprised that, because I'm guessing he hangs out with Chris Haffey on the Nitro Circus. I'm surprised he hasn't gone down that route much more, because as I was saying, he went from scooter, being a scooter kid that people laughed at, ended up achieving like the top of the top there. And then put his scooter down for a little bit. He still scoots, but then picked up the BMX, and just because of his attitude and because of his like approach to scootering, he brought that towards BMX, and he was doing tricks that the commentators in the X Games were like, yeah, I have no idea what we call this. Like, I don't know what that is. And he won like gold. He broke a record. It was like, and he'd been BMXing for like 6 months, and he won gold at the X Games.
What?
I think he got like 3. Yeah, it was something like that. I might be getting some of the dates mixed up, but it was something like that. And the dude's crazy, and it's because he just did his own thing. And like when people were kind of clowning on him, he used that as a bit of a fire. So maybe a little bit of bullying's good, not too much, but a little bit. Helps.
Yeah, no, I think so too.
Yeah, that's when people find the most success, when they, going against the stream like that, because people, every sport gets that too. We get the same thing. Also, we had numerous guests on the show who are some of the biggest pros ever, and they started from skateboarding because that was kind of naturally what it was in the 90s or early 2000s. But they would go to the skate park with a skateboard and rollerblades, and skateboarders would be like, yo, you got to pick one. You can't like be showing up at both of them. And then they would pick the rollerblades, and they went on to become some of the best skaters ever. So it's like, you kind of need that pushback sometimes to light the fire under you.
Yeah, it's like, every like good superhero or like karate film or something like that, they weren't fucking with him at the beginning, but at the end, you're like, he's the boy.
Yeah,
exactly. We've been talking like a lot about, the relationship between parkour and some skating things, but I'm curious, like your introduction to skating, like just before you made the video, Why Rollerblading Died, like,
why
you seem to do like a lot of really good research on that. I think as like, Tom pointed out in one of his videos, Tom Moyes, he pointed out like, that some of the era and clips story was like not exact, but like it was really well done. And I think everyone in skating was like, wow, this is really impressive. So what was your first impression of rollerblading and like, your kind of journey down that road and your discovery into skating yourself?
Yeah. So I was just trying to think that through, because I think I've pegged it a little bit. So my first probably ever, like I would have seen rollerblading like when I was growing up, like odd things on like the Extreme Sports Channel, MTV or something like that. I would have probably seen like very odd things, but I never knew the level it got to, like ever. I was just like, I might have seen a handrail being grinded or something. And then so Daniel Willabaka, free runner, he got into rollerblading, put some things out, and I remember just seeing him do this big like clear. He like cleared over this rail over. There was like a rail, bit of a drop, and then there was like a spiked fence, probably like a 15-foot gap. It was pretty big, and I was like, damn, like people actually can do cool stuff on rollerblades, and that was kind of all I knew. I didn't know there was really people like doing that. I just knew that it was possible because he did. And then so anyway, I'm making all these videos about parkour. I start getting a little bit like bored of just talking about the same thing. I think, okay, let's maybe try and look at some different sports. And then I started doing that. I get some comments, people saying like, because I did a few like rise and fall kind of things, and like a few comments just saying like, oh, check out rollerblading. Like rollerblading has a bit of a cool story to it, and I was like, oh, okay. So people start emailing me, and I see it more and more, and I'm like, all right. And then I just did some like research, and I watched that Barely Alive documentary. I don't know who put that out, but it was cool as hell.
Barely Dead.
I think it might have had some of you. Yeah, Barely Dead.
Yeah,
that was. And I think like some of you guys may have been. I don't know. Like it was like it was a pretty legit piece.
Yeah.
And I watched that and I was like, fuck, man. Like seeing some of the clips in that, I was like, the shit people were doing is like gnarly. And so from there, I started making this video, which was basically like, I can't lie, I watched that video, sort of rewrote it and was like, make it YouTube-y, make it like, you know, a YouTube story, do a bit of my own research, look into like my own stuff. But I kind of took a lot of the info from there. And I think I shouted it out in that video. I think at the end I was like, yeah, you know, there's a great documentary on it. And so, yeah, I watched that, sort of had a few names there. And when I was researching and watching some clips, I was like, you know, searching up all these names. And I was like, God damn. Like, and I come across like KFC, and I was like watching all of those videos, and like, I don't know. I just kind of had this like evening where I was just like up till 2 a.m. just watching all this shit. And yeah, put together that video. And just a little tangent here, because I've never told this story and I find it fun. It is interesting. But I was in a sauna, which is a massive part of my life. I sit in a sauna for hours. I don't know why. It's just something I enjoyed doing. And so in the sauna I'm at, it's a very social sauna. And like everyone chats to everyone. Like, I don't know why, because we're British and we normally like just look away from each other. But like in this one sauna, we're all chatting. And this guy asked me what I do for a living. I'm not saying I do YouTube videos. I'm talk about this, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I'm making this one about rollerblading. And he goes, oh, rollerblading? And I was like, yeah, I do rollerblading. And I was like, oh, maybe he just owns a pair of rollerblades. And he goes, yeah, like Arlo Eisenberg back in the 90s. And I was like, fuck, I've just learned all this stuff. And so I have this really good-ass conversation with this stranger about, like, intricate names from the 90s and, like, early 2000s of rollerblading that I'd learned the week prior. And so, like, that helped. I think that helped push me a little bit into, like, oh, maybe I should, like, give this a go. And he was saying, yeah, no, you could get some like good rollerblades for pretty cheap, like pick them up. And so pretty soon after that conversation, because I knew someone that did it now, I was like, I'll buy some. I bought some, made that like 1 week challenge, because that's like a good format for YouTube content. That did all right. And like I fell in love when I was like doing that. Like beforehand, I thought I'd just do it for a video. But then when doing it, I just like instantly just loved it. I was like, this is fun. Like actually, that's a lie. First day, hated it. But as soon as I kind of figured out how to move, loved it. And I was like, shit. And now, yeah, I'm just kind of obsessed with it. it's yeah, I do it. I doing it a fair bit. It's terrible weather here at the moment. So like I have to go all the way to like an indoor park, but yeah.
Your obviously your first video, like you were talking about, that you kind of based off of Barely Dead, because I noticed that also. But I'm glad you made that, because Barely Dead is already almost probably 15 years old. So it's not outdated, but there's way more to the story now than there was then. So watching your video, I was so happy to see that, because it needed like an update, kind of like our story needed an update. And YouTube obviously is a perfect format for it. You have almost 1 million views in that video already. So that's that's huge. It's probably one of like the most viewed rollerblading related videos on YouTube.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because this was an argument I used to have a lot in the parkour world. So the reception from the rollerblading community versus the parkour community to like content, I was just like blown away by the lack of negativity towards that video. Like every rollerblader, touch wood, every rollerblader I spoke to or messaged me was pretty positive. Like there was one guy who was just sort of saying, well, maybe one or two guys that were like, there's a couple of inaccuracies, but the video was really good and it got a lot of views and it's great that people were talking about it. And I was like, this is a fucking great response, because I would do parkour videos all the time. And like, I used to get in a lot of shit for, I remember having people trying to like witch hunt me. It was almost like a cancel mob over the fact that I accredited this guy for inventing a style of parkour that some people disagreed with. And these people were like commenting on every fucking thing I'd do. And it was like, they were like out for blood. And then I make this video about rollerblading, and I'm like, oh, shit, you know, I just assumed like might get some bad reaction, but whatever. But honestly, the feedback was insane. Like having like people like Arlo Eisenberg message me and stuff and being like, this is an awesome piece. I was like, fuck, like really very embraced by, I felt very embraced by the community. And it was a very cool response. And maybe it's just a mature community. Parkour has a lot of young people, but yeah, I was really impressed with the kind of response, and all the any criticism was constructive. It wasn't just fuck you.
we definitely went through that phase too, though, so don't worry. There was a time 10, 15 years ago where there were message boards and everyone was just hate, and that was probably part of the downfall of skating as well. But now you're right, maturity, we're definitely there. I think when you've hit rock bottom, which is kind of what our sport has done, you learn a lot and you mature and you're a lot more humble, which I think is also adding to all the support. And it sucks because why couldn't we just be doing this 15 years ago? Why can't you
gotta learn those lessons though? You gotta learn them, and it's interesting. I don't know, to get too off topic, but just in culture, you see it with religions as well. Very old religions, very old cultures tend to be very peaceful because they've had endless years of turmoil, ups and downs, and then they eventually kind of figure out how to get along. It's to a degree, and it's sort of you can see again, I don't know how sort of wide you want to take this conversation, but America and England. I'd say America, I don't think this is a controversial statement. At the moment, there's a little bit of bickering going on inside America. People are at each other's throats. And even in the same time period in England, it doesn't feel like that. So we see all this happening in America. And we're like, this is strange because it doesn't feel like that here. We might have some arguments, but it's not like that. And I think it has to do with the age of the country. And I think that's a thing that sport cultures will experience as well. Very young sports are immature. And you have time periods to mature and become sensible. And you can see mountain biking, I would say, is quite a mature sport. There probably isn't a lot of, I might be wrong here, might be completely wrong, but there's not loads of beefs that happen. So I think, parkour, maybe just a younger sport, hasn't found its footing. Rollerblading, a bit older, maybe found its footing. It is dealt with its issues. So I think that is a thing that is quite common for young things in general. It's mature.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes a good sense, and I like the comparison you put there because that is something that is completely relatable. And even you look at skiing was there before snowboarding, and snowboarding had to go through the thing where they had to cut their teeth and get their respect, and they were looked at as punks. And blading went through it, and that's natural. You're an OG skateboarder, you've been skateboarding forever long. You're seeing all your friends with talent, not really be able to cultivate anything because you're at a point where it's their sport is kind of had a big moment and then fizzled down a little bit. Blading comes in, new kids on the block, super freaking, the 16-year-old kids are all over the place. You're like, what is this? At the skate park, just mobs of people that don't have any park etiquette because, skate park etiquette is a thing. You got to kind of watch out. And so it all makes sense. And I think blading did have to, go through that humbling phase that is kind of serving it a little bit now.
Because if you think about it, you guys are older and you're the experts in this very particular thing. And before you probably didn't have these kind of elder statesmen, so to speak, people that had been through being a kid, getting super hyped on it, sending massive stuff. You've done the whole thing. And so if your industry has those kind of people that are the OGs, that's so good because you've got people that have been in your exact shoes and can relate to you and offer you advice. And you're going to listen to that person more than probably you're going to listen to your mum telling you that you ain't making money off of this thing. You're probably going to listen to someone that's been through the ringer. And if you don't have that in your sport, you're a bit lost, but it just takes time for that to kind of happen, I think.
No, I think that's exactly right. I think it's fair to say that there was a few generations of skaters, and Arlo and those guys and Brooke and those guys being in the first generation. And then I think our generation, Austin, myself, and maybe Mike Johnson and these guys, Dre Powell, were the second generation of skaters who came after. And then there was a third, and it continued on. But, we used to joke that it's coming up in, I guess maybe it's not a good joke, but coming up in blading is kind of coming up in it was coming home, growing up in a family with not present father. Do you know what I mean?
Absent father.
It was what do we do? Who do we look to? A lot of those guys, and all respect to them, but they came in a place where blading was hot, and they kind of saw reaped some benefits that, and when it fizzled down, they weren't as present anymore, and we're like, oh, who do we go to? Where's the guidance?
So funny, man. That's so funny because parkour sort of has a similar joke about our founders of the sport. So we have these guys. We have David Bell and Sebastian Foucan, and it's like David Bell was the kind of legit founder, I suppose. Like his dad was kind of like the guy who come up with the thing. I mean, yeah, and like so he was like the founder, but everyone calls him like the absent father of parkour because he kind of just bailed on it. And then Sebastian Foucan had to be like the stepdad, like come in, and he's like, look, I know I'm not your dad, but I can fill the role. And so and it's always like he was the father parkour needed, I think is what people can say. So it's kind of interesting. You have a similar-ish sort of thing with the OGs.
Yeah, no, I think also like a thing that I was noticing a while ago that I was like, oh, that, watching the history of skateboarding and being like what they went through and like seeing things that were able to help them. They had like a lot of crossover with things like music and art and film. Like there was like a punk was tied into skateboarding in the 80s and blading at the time earlier, like in the 90s and things like that. I think it was attached to some of those things, but they were kind of taken from skateboarding, and blading was trying to find its own identity and also had to like cross over and infiltrate other cultures, if that makes sense. Like whether it be like getting into whatever art field or like things like this or music or like becoming to kind of bring skating with you. I think that's what skateboarding did pretty well. And I think those like tumultuous years of blading being just like dead in the dumps were just like made those talented people have to use their talents in other places and then succeed in that right, and then full circle come back in and incorporate.
What have you felt with like the kind of, have you felt like this sort of resurgence is like tangible? Like have you noticed there's more people? Because the reason I ask is like when I go rollerblading, I've now bumped into like a few other rollerbladers, and I was like, the very first few sessions I was like the only guy doing rollerblading, and then I had these two little kids, like probably 11. It was like the week or two after Christmas, so they just got their blades for Christmas, and they come up to me and they go, "Oh, are you JimmyTheGiant?" I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Oh, we got rollerblade." I went up to them and I see them rollerblading. I was like, "Oh, sick little." Like good job getting the rollerblades. I think I made a joke about scooters. I was like, you could have been scooter kids, but you got your rollerblades.
That's true.
And then and then so like they come back around and go. Then they ask, "Are you JimmyTheGiant?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, we got into it because of your video." And I was like, "Oh shit, like that's
no way,
so sick." Yeah. So it was the 1 week of rollerblading videos. So they like see that.
Wow.
And they asked their parents for rollerblades for Christmas. I was like, "Oh, that's fucking cool." And so like I've noticed, then there was like this other girl that I see one like roller skater girl, and then I see a rollerblader girl, and so I have started seeing more of them, more than I've seen like BMX, which is surprising. And I'm just kind of curious. Have you noticed it tangibly, or is it just something you see it more on Instagram?
Yeah.
I've personally seen it definitely more tangibly. More noticeably, I've seen the culture shift in the past 5 years, but more significantly in the past 3. As someone who's been skating for like 25 years, in at least in not all places, maybe a little different in New York, but it's if you go to a skate park with like a lot of skateboarders, like never a pleasant experience. Very rarely is there any interacting or hello, like, or even if you do, it'd be like head nod, hi, how's it going? Like very distant. But even like just culturally, you see people like clapping their boards. Oh man, that was sick. Oh, the rollerblades are cool. Like people are starting to discover it in a way and like kind of leave their bias behind, which for me is, I'm a cynical New Yorker. So I'm just like, I don't know how to take it or accept it. I'm like, this is very strange to me. And I don't know if it's going to last, but it's, I've definitely seen a tangible change. And I see like, starting to see some younger kids on skates, which is cool. And I'm not sure that there's a lot of, again, like cynicism and skepticism. Like people are like, oh, is this just like the COVID bump, which has like been like proven to be in like a lot of things, or is this something that could go further? And I think it's I just think it's at a place with potential and opportunity, and it's I'm not sure. I just who knows? It's a very fascinating time. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And like I really I think I don't know. I think it would be cool if as I was saying, more free runners get into it, because I've noticed like I've had a lot of people message me like free runners, like, oh, what blade should I get? And I'm like, oh, what are you thinking of getting some? And so like more and more people were like messaging me that I know, just friends in general wanting to try it. And I think it just takes like people to come along and do it, that like maybe have a bit of a platform. So I think having made some of these pieces and like the videos on it, I think as well what it is, right? And this is what I think is like when you see someone shit at something, you're more likely to see yourself in that person. So that you've probably seen like Bones Brigade and stuff, but they had this guy called Lance Mountain who was like a bad skateboarder. Well, not bad, but you're next to Tony Hawk and Rodney Mullen. You're a bad skateboarder.
Yeah.
And like, so he was chilling. He was having fun. He was a groovy guy. And people like saw him and they were like, I could do that. I'm probably not going to do a 900, but I can cruise around and touch the board a little bit. And so he was heavily invested in by like Stacey Peralta. And they were like, no one really got it, right? Because Stacey was a genius and sort of like, he sort of saw something in him and no one understood. And over time, he become like the biggest guy because he was basically relatable, like, and so I think having made the content I make, and I want to make more, like I'm planning to do like a month's progress or like a couple months or that, and just doing stuff like that and people seeing the kind of reality of rollerblading a bit more is maybe what could really help make it at least sustainable. Because the thing I've noticed, right, and this is where I reckon might be interesting to talk about, but like say YouTube content for rollerblading is largely these edited parts that are basically what rollerblading content, from as far as I'm aware, has kind of always been. So it's like parts that you edit to music, which is cool. It's cool if you're a rollerblader and you enjoy it and you want to geek out on good rollerbladers. It's great. But when it comes to like someone who has no idea about rollerblading, they watch that and it gets confusing, and it's like they don't really relate to it. But if you see a guy make a video and it's like I don't know, committing to the hardest handrail I've ever grind or some shit like that, like biggest handrail grind challenge, some shit, just YouTubey content where they talk through it, they show the attempts, and they're like, all right, so this is the challenge, blah, blah, blah. That instantly becomes more relatable to your average Joe than watching a video part, because it's like there's a story that they can follow, there's a personality, and they see that person is a person and not some superhero. And I think that's one of the things with content is like, when I look at rollerblade content, it sort of, as much as I enjoy it, it sort of needs, I don't want to tell people what to do because it feels very rude to do that, but like it almost needs more YouTubey content where people can kind of connect with it. If people want it to grow to an outside audience. If they don't, then fair enough, don't. But those videos are really going to help people click with it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you're saying, and sorry, Austin, I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah, like first to your first point about the tangibility of it, like that's something I think someone on one of our podcasts, Dennis, pointed out to me like a while ago, like when he first saw skating, he wasn't really attracted to it because it was like this old crazy big stuff, and it was like that doesn't seem like really relatable, and then he saw stuff that was able to relate to it. It's like, oh, that's cool, like. There's a point in rollerblading where when I started, they had like really big tricks, but then people would like fakie 360 off 4 stairs in the video as well. And you're like, oh, I could do that. I could be in this video. But that's just like in terms of like how it's presented. But how you're saying about like how things need to be narrated, that's something I've been like talking with Austin for a little while. And, the history of skating forever is just like tricks, cut to music, edited, and presented in that way. And that's the formula. But just like anything like descriptive or explanatory, you make it real, make yourself a person, is like, that goes so far, because it's just, it's like you said, it's like rollerblading for rollerbladers are those things. It's like, it's not for anybody else. And like you said, like it could be if you're not like involved in all the way, and it doesn't make sense.
Do you know a music? Very loose that you might know this, but do you know a musician called Jacob Collier?
I don't
know.
Nah. So Jacob Collier is like I think a producer, and so he has had like a lot of success on YouTube and a lot of success, I think, on like TikTok. I don't have that, so I'm not sure, but I think he's grown on there. And he is like a geeky music buff. So he makes like jazz and like classical genres that aren't like it's not pop music, and it's not like a trap beat. So he's making like super intricate music, and I don't mind that kind of music. Well, I love it now, but I don't think about it much. And then I watched a video of this Jacob Collier guy, and he'll like talk through it. And he made this one video, right? I think it was called like there is no such thing as a wrong note, and it was like an interesting title. So I was like, I make music, so I was like, well, there is. I can show you a lot of wrong notes. So I watched this video, and he like plays a little scale, like a classic scale, and he clicks a discord, like he clicks a really bad sounding note, but then he like does this thing where he like brings it back round, and then he starts talking about it, and he has this such a passionate way of talking about it. And so I'm sat there, 3 hours go past, I've listened to him talk about music theory for the last 3 hours, and he's talking to these random guys who I don't care about, don't know anything about, and I'm like mesmerized because this guy just has an ability to communicate what he loves about music and complicated music to the average Joe. And what these sports, and this is what I tried to do with the parkour stuff, and I hope that I had some success, is that these things that me as like, I guess, an expert in parkour, I've been in it a long time, can call myself an expert in one thing, I'd say it's parkour. And I have this knowledge, and I can explain it to someone who doesn't care about that. Like, I can geek out as much as I like on old school parkour videos, but your average Joe just doesn't know about that. And you need someone, or just people that can talk to the average layman and explain why it's interesting. Because in this world, there's so many things you could get into and be interested in. You need to see the story behind it and resonate with that character and resonate with that person. Yeah, I sort of think that could be an avenue that could really help rollerblading. Documentaries, YouTube content. I think it could help.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right, and and something I learned from watching your videos, you're really good at speaking and being able to deliver your message in a cohesive way. And I've learned even from like starting, with Austin doing this podcast, we're on like 116 episodes. In the beginning, we were like so bad, and still there are times I'm like, God, that I'm chopping up on my words and things like that. But it takes like a particular, like almost like voice and personality to achieve that. Like not just anyone can do it. And I think Biz does a really good job, because just his voice and the way he speaks, he's like really clear, and he delivers such like a good message. And that we have like other people, like Tom is fantastic. Moise, I think he's good.
Yeah.
But I agree. It's a space that should be explored more, and like more relatable. I don't think everyone. Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think it's like, I think it's a thing that a lot of people want to do, but don't know how to do it. And even just like, and how you explained it right there, it's like a really good breakdown of what is missing.
Yeah. No, I appreciate what you're saying. Like, I think there are people that do a very good job, and there are people like, because I listen to like Biz on his Instagram every now and then and stuff like that. And so these guys do a pretty good job, but it's one of the things is it's really hard to know the YouTube algorithm. So like Instagram, people probably see more success on, but the YouTube algorithm is very hard. And it's like, you really got to like play the game, and that becomes a thing in and of itself. So that's the other thing. You might be great at telling a story, but if you don't know how to like clickbait your videos, and you don't know how to get the retention of the video up, that can kill a video. So it's just, there's so much to it, where I might just say, oh, you need someone to come along and talk about it. It's not quite that easy, because you also need someone who knows the algorithm. You also need all this. So yeah, I think there are definitely people who are doing it, and like, it's just going to take time, and it takes, as you say, the right people to come along and do it. And like, I hope to be able to help in a way that I can, but at the same time, I don't know loads about rollerblading, and it's almost slightly disingenuous for me to like, do tons of content on rollerblading if I don't know the history. So I would do videos where it's like me learning that and then presenting it, whereas these guys who have been in it a long time, they're going to be able to make that really well. But I would like to do more, and so I'd like to hopefully work with guys like that, who could maybe collate the information and help me present it, because that is a thing I'm okay at, is like delivering the story, I suppose.
Yeah, there's the one of your videos, the one we just talked about before, where you learn how to skate in 1 week, And that's probably maybe your most relatable skating video because it's something that everyone can learn from. And it's not even just the people who are outside of the sport that can learn from it too, because I told you before we started the show that I thought that was one of your most interesting videos as well, because someone who's been skating for so long, you don't get that insight into somebody's mind, and you actually do learn from stuff like that too. Like I learned a lot from watching your video, even though I've been skating for 25, 26 years. So it's relatable on both ends. And yeah, like why do you think the video that you made with the history of rollerblading that has almost 1 million views, how did that get to 1 million views specifically? Like I know you try to jerk the algorithms and clickbaity titles and thumbnails and stuff like that, but that one in particular got like so many views. It had to have been shared more than just on the skating community, which it has been too. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do you know the reason for that?
I do think the thumbnail is very strong. So like, just it's very simply worded. Like why rollerblading died is so simple and just like straightforward. People probably sit there thinking, yeah, what the fuck did happen to rollerblading? So that's like, there's going to be that bit of curiosity. The thumbnail is very like strong, and that was something I worked on with my thumbnail guy. So like, you know, we put time into making the thumbnails look right. So it's like composed well. The colors are strong. It's very foreground, so it's not like too far away where things look small. So that's like the technical side. But then I do think just on like a public interest, I do think it is just that where people were like, yeah, what did happen to rollerblading? Like that was what made me make the video, because I was curious. I was like, yeah. So it just seemed to have more of more people were interested in that topic specifically, and yeah, it was just a pretty like, well, there are things I would have probably done differently about that video now, but like it was just pretty. I don't know. It was a fun video, I think, and I think like the history that was in it. So maybe you click on the video and then you start learning more as you go along, and you go, oh shit, yeah, it did get to a really good level. Oh, this did happen. Why did this happen? So what we do on like the YouTube videos is like front load the kind of hook and the interest. So you make like the first 30 seconds like a reason to keep watching, because you can click on a YouTube video and be like skipping through it, because you're just trying to get to the interesting part. But if right at the beginning, it's like, look, this happened. It's like, oh yeah, shit. And so you're in for the ride sort of thing. So it was just a video that I think I found a lot of passion for, because I try and put all my effort into every video, but there are just certain videos where I'm just like, this is very interesting, and I really wanted to do it well. That was the other part. I think I really wanted to like do it justice. And some people might say I didn't, but you know, like I felt like I wanted to put as much as I could put into it. And so it was a bit of that, and yeah, like there was a famous streamer who watched it and stuff, and that his reaction to it has like 100,000 views on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
yeah. So it's like I think it's the topic that I think, you know, I can do as good of a job as I can do, but at the end of the day, it just has to be an interesting topic to people. Like, I've put as much effort into videos that have tanked, so you know, it's like something about that. So that's a good sign for rollerblading, that there is an interest for it.
Yeah, I think so too, because if nobody had any interest in rollerblading, nobody would have saw anything. And I feel like if you would have done that peak pandemic, like 2020, March, April, May, something like that, when rollerblading was like really like on the uptick, like that would have been at 5-10 million views easy, you know?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. That's the other thing. Like the thing with the algorithm is you can really do everything you think is right, and then a video tanks. And like sometimes it is a bit of like a just mystery, but there are things you can do. You can up your odds. You can, and that's where people will always struggle. Like when their videos don't do well, there is usually quite a tangible reason. Like a YouTuber will be able to look at it and be like, you could have worked on that particular thing. So that's one thing. If anyone's like kind of watching and they're thinking about trying to make content, like really study the algorithm. Like be a bit like third person-y to yourself. Like, what do I find interesting when I'm on YouTube? What am I clicking? Why am I clicking it? Is it the colors? What is it? Like what? Just be a bit like, what is this? A psychological thing. It's marketing. It's like what grabs people, and why does it grab people? So like I see it a lot with content in parkour, in rollerblading. Like I like the video because I've clicked it, I've watched it because I had that sort of want to watch it, but I can see why this video hasn't taken off, because you just haven't done a few things right. And so it is very tricky. I don't want to try and downplay it. And there is a bit of luck to it, as I'm saying that. that video did do well. So there is some element of luck, but you can up your odds.
That's a really fascinating perspective, and it's cool to hear like all the things that go into it. Yeah, I'd be interested as well, like as to your point before, like to see you continue like blading videos from the perspective of. I think that's why I think it did so well as well, because you're not coming from like someone telling their own story, like, you know, like maybe like there could be like a dissociation, like Dunning-Kruger situation where you might not be able to tell your own story. So having that outside perspective of like someone being able to do that is cool. And I think if you do, just as a suggestion to what you were talking about before, continue to make blade videos. You know, maybe like I saw you just did something with Air Dolphin, but like it's cool to like maybe like engage and incorporate that, because you can still come from the perspective of like you know, genuine curiosity and interest and that.
Yeah. Like here's a cool dude I found, and it's like
exactly.
that's interesting. I really want to do a video because I watched your podcast with Brian Shima, and I really want to do one on like that gap that ended his career and like that kind of story behind that, because it's a strong title just in
that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
I really want to like tell that. So yeah, that's one I want to. They're the kind of things I also would like to do one on the leap of faith, because that's quite an interesting story, because like the skateboarders were doing it. Just a complete side note, has any rollerblader thought about doing the Leon 25, and do you think that's possible? Do you know about that?
I think a skater did the 20. Did it?
I'm pretty sure it's been done.
I'm pretty sure it was done before the skateboarder did it, and then the skateboarder did it, and everybody lost their shit, and everyone was like, "Oh, a skater did that already." I'm like 90%. I'm like 90%. I'm like 90% sure that a skater did that before the skateboarder did it.
Okay. So
no. I'm wrong.
Hang on.
I'm wrong. I had that comparison of Ski doing the 12-12, and I was like, oh, that's way bigger, and that was overlooked.
Right. Specifically the Leon 25, which what is it? Ali.
His name.
Ali Balala.
Aaron. Oh yeah.
Ali Balala tried first, and then Aaron Jaws Hamoki ended up landing it. By the way, there's if you haven't seen it yet, there's a really funny video of Jaws skating. Have you seen that, rollerblading?
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
Yeah. No, there's he was with Rob Scallion, this musician who's also a rollerblader.
Oh, he's sick, man. He's so cool. We chat. He's a really nice guy.
Oh, really? Yeah. So they did a video together, and like they were doing music together, and he was showing him a bit about music, and then Jaws took him out skateboarding, and you know, Rob went rollerblading, and then he let Jaws try it out. Biz did a really good video about it. Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting.
I've just searched that. I'm gonna watch that later.
Cool. That's a good one.
He's sick. That Rob Scallion dude. Did you see the stuff he did with Braille recently?
No,
I didn't see that either.
He went over to Braille skate park and just shredded. Like, I knew he was good, like, because I'd seen a couple clips, but he was like, he was saying to me, he messaged me, he was like, oh, have you seen what I did with Braille? And I was like, I see the thumbnail, I haven't clicked it yet. He was like, yeah, this was me trying my best. And I was like, okay, you know, expecting it to be pretty good. And then like watched it, I was like, fuck, he's like sick. He's like a massive YouTube personality, a sick musician, and a sick rollerblader. And he was saying, like, yeah, he would have wanted to go down the pro rollerblade route if the music never took off. So he's like a very legit skater.
Wow. No, I was really surprised when I was like looking at his stuff too. He's a really, really good skater. Actually, it would be cool to have him on the podcast one day.
Get him on, man. He liked the post that I put up of me saying I'm going on this. So he would I'm sure he would definitely want to go on. Yeah,
no, we've been in like a brief contact interaction. So yeah, it's really sick. He's really sick. Cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but back to my point on Leon 25 then. So do you think if that hasn't been done, I hope it hasn't, because I'm making a video on it, and I've said it hasn't been done. So I hope someone can quickly try and prove that
it might been done. Yeah, it you know what? Like to what Austin said, I don't think
Austin, I think your mic's muted.
My bad. It could definitely be done. I had a cough before.
Yeah. See, I don't know. Like, I know it wasn't done before Ali Balala, that's for sure. And maybe it was done. It's hard to say. That's a good question. I don't think so. If anyone knows in the comments, any French skaters out there, I'm sure would know. So please put them in the comments.
So if you were to put forward your front runners to do it, who would you have? I'll tell you who I would have. Well,
Let's hear
I
what
can
you
only
say.
name one. I think Damon F. I forget what his real name is.
Damon
Damon
Franklin.
F
Damon Franklin.
Yeah, Damon Franklin. I feel like because I saw him do this massive like clear from a tree recently, and I was like, that's probably not far off of it. Like it was maybe it's different. It was a different setup.
It's a ramp setup, so it's a little different than street.
Yeah, but I was like the impact looked maybe about similar.
That one looked more distance than height, and there was some height in it for sure. But I think the Leon set is significantly higher.
Yeah.
Damn, who would do that?
I think if Bellino was motivated, he could do it.
Oh yeah, Montre could probably.
Montre, if he was motivated, he could do it.
Yeah.
There's not, and I'm not saying Air Damon can't do it. He might be able to do it too. I just know that like in terms of their strengths, Air Damon's like has more strengths on ramps, and John and Montre are more street guys, like the kind of straight big impact stuff. So yeah, those are two off the bat.
That's an interesting thing I noticed straight away with parkour and rollerblades, because when I bought them, I was like really worried of like just fucking my ankle up, because I have a bad ankle. I've like rolled it so many times, and like my knees are pretty bad as well from parkour, and I was like really careful. I was like, am I going to do this? Am I going to hurt my ankles? But I was noticing like rollerblades, like they almost dissipate the momentum. So the way I try and explain it, because I get a lot of free runners when we all have the same fear. They're like, is it going to mess up my ankles if I buy them? And I was like, no, I don't think it will. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it does happen. But the way the boot's designed is that it seems, because it's big, you actually don't do lots of like ankle moving like this. Like your ankle kind of is stuck in the same place, and it's more in your knee. And then so I sort of liken it to in parkour, if you were to land and always do a roll, like on everything, if you could, it would be similar, because you're sort of spreading the momentum. Whereas in parkour, you stick landings and you take the impact into your body. And so the reason all our ankles and knees are fucked is because of the amount of impact we take when we're like 19, our bodies aren't strong enough, and we're sending 19-foot running precisions. Whereas on rollerblades, you're gradually taking it. So I've noticed my knees and my ankles and my just muscles in my legs are getting stronger from rollerblading. So that's something I did notice is quite different between the two.
Yeah, no, like, and it makes perfect sense, because if you think about like what comes with like the gap in parkour, or like doing it in your shoes, when you jump off something, like you're absorbing the impact and you're having to stop. So there's going to be that like absorption that you just can't avoid. Or like you said, like if you land straight into roll, would like avoid that impact. You're dodging that. In rollerblading, if you're landing a gap the right way, like it could be huge, but you won't really feel it if you've like taken it right, like and absorbed right. Like if you land in the wrong way or land on the thing, you could be like, bam, it could hit your feet. And even if it's something off 5 feet, just landing wrong, it could hurt you. Yeah. But if you're doing something like massive, and you just like the way the like, I guess the flow of the trick and the speed and how you land, how you absorb it. I've experienced like jumping really big things and be like, oh, that didn't like feel anything. Yeah, it's weird.
So like the Leon 25 then, I'm obsessed with Leon 25 because I'm making a video on it. So could that be done in a way that wouldn't, like, would you expect an injury out of that? Because everyone who did it pretty much injured themselves in some way or another.
You definitely could, but someone who's going to do that is experienced enough to know how to fall. You know, it wouldn't be just like a random person. And also, skates have a shock absorption through the urethane of the wheels. We have, heel pads in it. Some frames have bushings, like suspension kind of thing. So there's different ways to absorb the shock also, compared to parkour or skateboarding, something like that. So what
would be the fear on a landing like that? What would be like, okay, this is possible that this will go wrong? Because in parkour, it was like bruised heel, and that's what he did.
That's what we have too. Common. Like, so if you could bruise your heel.
The head, I would think. The head.
Yeah, you could bruise your head. You could also stick and go back. You could also like lean too forward and take it straight to the knees. So it's like, but sometimes you could be right on top of something and land like right on your feet and just not in the right way. And you could like bruise your heels, like stuff like that.
I would think that like most people would probably try to 180 it rather than forward air it. 180 is a little more realistic, and it's easier to land fakie than forward on skates.
Yes.
And I would think
what's that all about?
Because it's like toes.
I think it's the way you bend your knees. I don't know. What is it?
Yeah. Well, because when you're landing forward, you're just landing in a way like, because the way you absorb the jump or the gap is like, you bend your knees, right? So when like you're doing that forward, like you're kind of doing that in a way that's like puts like a lot of more pressure on the top of your body. When you're doing it backwards, I feel like your body is positioned in a different way where your upper half is more in one position forward, your lower half's behind you. So it's like more of a toes thing. That's my theory. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I could be dead wrong, but
yeah. 180 is definitely easier though than forward.
Do rollerbladers think about that stuff much? Because this is maybe a cultural thing that might be interesting in parkour and rollerblading. I don't know, so I might be wrong. But parkour people tend to be very aware of like health and like also their bodily mechanics and like resting and recovery. There's quite a focus on health, whereas I don't think skateboarding has that.
Right.
But yeah, parkour people might know the bodily mechanics that would lead to a good landing. Like certain ones would. They would be like, oh yeah, that's because of this flexor and this thing that happens in this part of your body. I was wondering, are rollerbladers a similar way, or are they not so much?
No, not really.
Yeah,
no,
I was about to say no. There might be a few people who are like specific into health and stuff, but overall, generally, that doesn't seem right at all. And I'm thinking when you mentioned that,
that's so funny.
I'm thinking about like all skaters on tours, everyone like partying every night and like fucking up their body, and then just out to like 5 a.m, and then waking up next morning, boom, and starting to throw themselves off the Leon 25. You know, like that's what I think about when I think of skating.
You don't want free runners to come into your sport, or they are going to ruin the culture. We're going to be like bringing foam rollers and like saying, yeah, you should be really cooling down after that.
Well, you know what? That's
we do.
That's actually that's been happening because like like as we were saying earlier, like it has matured rollerblading, and I think in the beginning it was like a lot of that like stuff, and that's still there, and people are still, but a lot of people come out to this spot with like the foam rollers. A lot of people are just like drinking a lot of water, stretching. You never saw rollerbladers stretch 15 years ago. Never. People just went out there and skated, but now you're seeing people stretch before the skate spot. So yeah, there's some it was I don't know, I guess it was like again tied into like this kind of like thrashy, like I don't really care kind of style, like punk kid. Rebellious youth kind of thing, angsty teen, and then people just really continue to love skating and just got older.
Well,
and
I think like parkour, it's French in origin, so there's a certain way that French people are. So I think there's our culture comes from that. So it's like there's a phrase called "be strong to be useful." We're very wanky. I'll be totally honest. We're very wanky. Like we it's not uncommon you'd see a group of freerunners like deep breathing, maybe doing yoga or some shit. Like we're a bit wanky, but you get a lot of people there into that stuff. Like I do like the Wim Hof method. I go saunas and all that. I'm probably not like the advocate of health. Like I'm not as good. I definitely drink and stuff like that. But you will get some freerunners that really understand health to some insane level. And I think it comes from the French origins because they had like a strong philosophy, dude. And that's what makes freerunning interesting is like, compared to all these other sports, which were just like back in the day, like obviously it's different now, but it's like it was dudes just trying to do dude shit. That was kind of the origins, and then it's changed over time. Whereas parkour was very much like these guys, these French people that were deep and brooding, and they were like born in like really shitty areas of France, and they were trying to find meaning and purpose. So there's a bit more of this sort of stuff. Whereas, I think rollerbladers were like, we're just trying to huck some big stairs.
Yeah, that was definitely the case, and I feel like a lot of us are older now too.
Reading a book on like life. You guys were like, smoking joints and chilling.
I mean, who knows? Who knows where rollerblading would be if we had that same ethos from the beginning? We might be, flying around doing crazy stuff. But I do see that like change. And I'm sorry.
Sorry. No. You just made me think because I was like, but then parkour is not like now I say that like parkour is almost having or had a rebellious phase where it was like looking at the OGs like you lot are lame, like we're gonna stop being like that. So it is kind of funny how these cultures form in their own sports.
I mean, I hate to give like any like horrible ideas, but I feel like the parkour culture could tie really in with like graffiti culture just based on where they can go, and like they could just like be up on some, I don't know if that's is that the same thing, those like the parkour like people on like the roofs like hanging off like
I'm with you. So like graffiti quite different. Like I don't know anyone that does graffiti, and that's quite a common thing. People think like freerunners probably do graffiti, and it's interesting. I don't know why they don't, but I think it probably is that it just doesn't have that kind of like I guess, edginess, even though we like break and enter places. I think that's probably an interesting one. But yeah, like, so very good question, because that whole thing of like crane climbing was a controversy basically. It was like hard to explain, right? So I'm working on a bit of an exclusive, but I'm working on something about that, and I'll just leave it at that. But basically, culturally, it was like parkour people would often do a thing called like night missions. So this was like you're with your gang and it's late. It's too dark to do parkour. So it's like, well, let's go climb something. Let's go. There's this drain pipe up, I don't know, 3-4 stories. So we could all like climb it, get to the top, sit on the roof, discuss life, talk about deep breathing. And like, that was kind of like a thing, right? It was called night missions. It was like a big part of the culture. So that was something we all did, but it was quiet. Like, we didn't really talk about it. It was just sort of the done thing. And then over time, like when YouTube come about, someone had a good idea to put a GoPro on their head and film what they were doing. And that escalated to having these celebrities that like become big names making killings off of YouTube, and the whole thing just started getting more and more extreme. So it was like, you know, you go up on a little roof with your buddies, maybe do some shimmies across like window ledges and like doing some pretty cool stuff. But then they were like climbing cranes, and then it was like hanging off of cranes, and then it was like breaking and entering to live television shows and like overnight challenges. So like breaking into IKEA and hiding somewhere, and then when the store shuts, you then jump around in it. So it escalated. These guys were making killings off of it. And then a load of crap happened. Like YouTube, like demonetized all of these guys. Lots of problems with the authority. Like some of them had 30, 50 plus like police, you could call it, like, you know, like issues from the police. Getting banned from city centers. People went bankrupt because there were so many legal fees. This whole crazy situation happened. And all the while, parkour sort of like didn't fuck with it, but did at the same time, because we all kind of did it. Like all of us would have climbed a crane or something, but we didn't like that the image of parkour was becoming that. So like when you would say parkour, you'd be like, oh, the dudes that are like hanging off of cranes. It's like, well, no, it's not quite that. It's more like, you know, people jumping around doing flips. And so that was becoming the image, and a lot of people had a lot of issues with it. There was a lot of beef, and yeah, I want to make something very in depth on that story, because it's a very fascinating story.
Yeah, that's definitely like a distinction that should be made if there's like two different things, because I would imagine one brings a lot of bad press to the other, and why like I would imagine the authorities probably cracked down because, you know, some people probably died, you know, because
there was a couple, but it was more like, say, it was like people were, as I say, getting crazier and crazier, and they were doing stuff like jumping off of moving trains into like rivers. Like that happened. And they were finding that like the incident reports for kids doing shit like this, like 300-400% increase in like a year. It was like very much like influenced by these guys doing it. And it was a weird one, man, because like I'm very much like a freedom loving guy. You know, I like Americans because they're very much, they like freedom. And I think parkour has always had that thing in the back of its mind of like, we're just trying to be free and do our thing. So it's like, I never want to say like someone shouldn't do anything. Like, I really do just think, find your own. There are things you probably shouldn't do, but you're entitled to making that decision and finding out, making that mistake. So I never want to tell someone not to do anything. But there was always this thing where it was just like, shit, man, like, just don't like how this is sort of going for parkour and how it makes us look. But at the same time, I'm no one to say you can't do that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a weird one, a strange part of the history of our sport.
A video on that would be definitely really interesting, because I know people outside your sport love watching people hang off cranes and shit like that. It's just interesting.
I'd get demonetized off YouTube for making it, so I'm hoping to make it proper as like like a I won't say it, but you know, like
how do you go around that? How do you go around making it proper then, without showing it?
Doing it off of YouTube, so not doing it on YouTube.
Gotcha. All right.
I would like to talk more on it, but because it's like so early days, I don't want to like, you know, spill the beans, so to speak.
No, it's gonna be a sick video on your channel either way. I mean, or not on your channel, whatever you decide to put it at.
I want to do it proper, man.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
I want to see. So, like, I do want to see. It'd be interesting to see if rollerbladers adopt this model that parkour has started to adopt with doing like the private content, because I really believe in it. Like, I really think if you and your mates are like putting out content online for free, like, and however many views it's getting, like someone, if you did a really good thing that was like 40, 50 minutes long, or even an hour, and I don't know, it might have already been done, I don't know. And then you put that out on like a private platform and charge people to watch it. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's almost more special. And it's like, as a fan, I want to give money to like these dudes. If people are like putting their heart and soul into rollerblading and like risking it, or maybe not risking it, but just putting their heart and soul into it, doing sick shit and making a cool ass video, and they ask me for a few pounds to watch it, I would definitely pay that. And like knowing that money's going straight to them, and that that's supporting the industry, and that they might be able to do more off of that, and they might be able to, pay sponsor athletes who fucking knows. But like, I'd be curious to know if rollerbladers have thought about doing those kind of like long form pieces.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, but like to your earlier what you were saying, like I agree. I think if you build it, they will come. Just like if you make something and put it out there, put your heart, put your passion into it, then you'll get more support for it than you think, because people are willing to support these kind of things. But I think that some people, it's something like we've been trying to push for a while. I've been saying now, like to all the writers who are involved in rollerblading, now is like the time to like write something, do a piece. Like I'm kind of super busy, but I'm slowly working with JP on doing like a documentary piece. So, cause right now our documentary thing would be Barely Dead, and that would be 15 years old and everything like that. So we're talking about doing something like that. That would be new. And, he's busy, I'm busy, but we've been like cracking away at it. But so that's something. Yeah. And I think we need to encourage like that kind of stuff. I think just take the first step for people who want to do that.
Yeah, you're pretty much talking about VODs for the videos, like VODs, video on demand, right? That's what you're talking about pretty much. Like, yeah, so
no, because he's saying like a 40, 50-minute piece, and like the VOD, like we discussed, is kind of like the model that has skating, editing, music, and like something you're talking about, something more like in depth.
Yeah,
right?
like the rock climbers do a lot of it, like free solo and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Definitely like that.
Longer form.
Yeah. I would love to see something like that too. That's a bit different. That's cool.
That's something I would like. If you ever want help with making something long form, that's like definitely what I want my future to be. Because the whole thing was like, when I was young, I wanted to be a filmmaker, like proper make movies and shit. And then I went down this route, and I love this route. But it's like, this to me is like a means to an end, where it's like can make some money to put into projects that I could eventually make like long form things. And
it's like, a vehicle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's like, I'd love to be a part of, if they're, if you guys are working on something and you need like help writing and shit like that, that's where my talents are, really. Like I'm not going to be fantastic at rollerblading, but I can tell a mean story. So that's like the kind of thing I want to move towards and work with people on, because like, even watching, like, because one of my favorite videos recently was the Rising video that you guys did. I really fucking loved that. Like,
thank you.
It was just a very cool video, and like something like that to me, I would pay to watch that. And it's like, I can understand why you might put it on YouTube, but yeah, I don't know. I just think there is an angle for it, and I think it just takes someone to do it, or like do it really well, and then I think more and more people will do it.
Yeah, no, I think, and normally under any other context, we probably would have sold that one, but it was just like to go with like the launch of the company, the brand. So we were just like,
Is Mesmer a new brand then?
Yeah, Mesmer's a skate company.
Yeah, because I see you have the blades where it's like there's like artwork on the bottom, right? And it's like white like base thing and like frame.
Sole
and
plates.
It's got that black. That black piece of art is so hard. I don't know what it is. Do other people do that shit? Because it just, I see that and it just, everyone that posts it, I'm like that. I don't know. It just looks hard.
Sick. No, the graphics on the bottom of the sole plate, like, Mesmer was like, we were like the first ones to do that. It hadn't been done prior. So yeah,
that's mad.
we weren't sure if it was possible. We were getting like all these samples and they came out light, and they had to mess with like I guess how they did it. And then it just came out really well. So now we got it dialed, and Yeah, it's cool. Thank you.
I was like, when I saw that, I was like kind of pissed off with my rollerblade choice. I was like, I should have waited.
I could picture in a few years. I could picture in a few years, like after a bunch of different soul plates with graphics have been up, like being able to hang them on your wall, like art pieces, like all next to each other, like different through the years, like different Mesmer soul plates, different artists. I think I could picture that on people's walls, and that's something cool and different that no one has done in skating. But you just mentioned something that I wanted to talk about also with you, because you, in the video where you started skating for that 1 week, you said you did all this research on like what skates to buy, whatever, and then you were just like, fuck it, I'm just buying whatever I think looks cool. And you bought a pair of Razor Colts, and it doesn't really matter what skates you buy if it's your first pair, as long as you're just getting on them. That's like the most important thing. I was curious what you were looking for in a pair of skates as somebody who's buying their first pair, you know?
I wear white shoes a lot, and it's, well, like off-white, so like that kind of like, like off-white sort of color shoe. And I was like, all of my outfits, they tend to go well with. So I was just like, I could get all these fancy ones, and then I just saw this one. And I was like, they kind of look like my shoes, so I'm going to go for it. And I kind of like like that brown bottom bit, because I didn't like the ones that were all white. To be honest, I regret getting white ones because they're so scuffed now. But at first, I thought they were going to be gleaming forever. And as well, the other thing I didn't think about is like the trousers. So I tend to go for that kind of like wide leg trouser, just slightly, where you get that kind of like what skaters wear, you know, where it's like that little bit of point and you see your sock.
Right.
It's like the style. I don't know why. But then I forget that like when you wear rollerblades, they're like big, so you kind of need trousers that go over it. So almost you want like boot cut trousers. I suppose that's why you get boot cut trousers. So to go over a boot. So it's like trying to work the style of it, but honestly, it's just style. I just liked how they look, and that's probably the most important thing to me. And I know that's not the most important thing. I like how things look.
Just wanted white skates.
I did, and then instantly regretted it.
Yeah, you know, white skates don't last like white sneakers do at all in any way. You can't keep them clean. No matter what you do, they're going to be all scuffed up and dirty.
Yeah. Someone was like, because I complained about it, and someone was like, yeah, but it's like your mark of like, you know, it shows that you've been rollerblading. It's like, I don't know what I fucking want. Like, you know, I want them to look nice, man. It's like, so that was a bit dumb. But like, I want to get, to be honest, I'll probably buy the Mesmer ones next, but I don't know. We'll see. I also really like the ones that Bobby Spazov has, the purple ones, domestic punk things. But the only thing I think with those is like, how many outfits is purple gonna go with? Again, I'm a bit like that. So it's like, you know, like how many like outfits is purple going to go with unless you wear certain things, like, you know. So it's kind of that, and that's why probably, and this is the same with parkour, everyone wears black shoes, because black, or if you release a parkour shoe, it will always be black most likely, because black just tends to go with most outfits, and it's a safe color. So I'll probably end up getting a black pair like everyone. But
yeah, it's the same thing. Like it's the same thing in blades. Like blades forever were just like black and white, and because you know they kind of go with so many different things. But it's cool to see like the different blades. Like, you know, you got the yellow one, you got the purple one, and all these different ones. The red one, and it's like a novelty. Like, you know, in terms of like the fashion is something that has always been a part of rollerblading from the beginning, whether consciously or subconsciously, but now I think it's like a more refined and mature. So like people are being more conscious of how they're organizing, how they look and presenting themselves, because at the end of the day, like even like for me, like I was like, oh, I don't give a fuck how anyone looks, how they dress or whatever. I just want to see some, but like, you know, if you're filming yourself, you're presenting yourself, you know, so that stuff is relevant. Yeah.
I always think Bobby just dresses so cool. He has like a sick style. And it's like, there's a thing of like, I've made a video about parkour with the same angle, where it's just like, there's something in, if you feel like, it's that sort of thing, like you go on a date, a really fancy date with your missus, you're going to wear, you know, like somewhere nice. You're going to wear like a suit, and you're going to be walking around like Billy Big Bollocks. You're going to be feeling good. And it's that sort of thing of like, when you look good, you feel good, and there's probably that subconscious thing that you actually start moving better. So like in parkour, when I was chatting to someone, it was like, like when I'm dressed like bummy, because back in the day we used to wear like baggy ass joggers, and I know rollerbladers did as well. And it was like, I don't know, just when you look back, you're like, we all dress like homeless people. That's what we have to look. All of my young pictures and me looking like I could have been sleeping out front of Tesco's, like I could have been on the street. And it's like yeah. But then when you dress a bit, cooler or whatever, just dress in a way that you like and you feel comfortable with, you actually find that your movement looks better. So like Bobby does something, and he does like, I don't know, I might be wrong here, but he does like, I guess, simple sort of stuff. Like it isn't like, he does do some big stuff, to be fair, but like it's just stylish stuff. And so when he dresses super well, it like enhances that, and so it just looks fucking cool. Whereas if you got some guys like hunched over and he's like, dressed like, not good, you could be doing similar stuff, but it looks better when someone presents himself well. It's art. No. It's art. At the end of the day, what we're doing is a visual thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, it needs to look cool.
Or fashion, because it's like sneakers. Skates are like sneakers, like fashion,
No, exactly. It's fashion. It's artistic. It's like a mark, whatever. It's a lot of things. But like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like the older skater Dominic Sagona, but he was like the first one that was kind of, you should check out some of his stuff. I think you'd like it. But like in the earlier days, he was really trying to accentuate certain movements. And I think that Bobby's doing something like that. It's not so much about like the craziest trick, but it's more about like the intention of what you're trying to present. And I think he's very conscious in that way. And bladers are getting more conscious in general of that now, and more self-aware in that way. So I think it's like a really good step.
You'd probably be interested to look at like Japanese trickers. Like there's a guy called, what's his name? He's kind of like regarded as the best tricker on earth at the moment. Let me just quickly try and do it. But basically,
what's a tricker?
There's something about. Oh, okay. So tricking.
I don't know what that is.
Tricking. It comes from martial. Oh, come on, sorry, man. I really want to get this name, but I know people don't want to hear me searching for something. I'll get his name in a minute. But like, tricking is basically a descendant of martial arts, where if you watch like someone doing their belt exam for like taekwondo, they'll like do loads of kicks on the floor and they'll like punch the air and they're just like doing this, right? And they're trying to do it with perfect form. They're trying to make it look really tough, like really nice, and then they combo it all together and they're doing like a presentation. So this, I'm trying to remember the exact roots, but I think it was to do with like, I think there's some sort of like monk type thing where you'd get these guys doing like these crazy kicks. They're like jumping, spin around, completely ineffective kick. Like in reality, you did that in a fight, you're going to get floored, but it looks cool. And so these guys started getting into martial arts for that. They were like, they liked that shit. They liked doing like superhuman spinning kicks. And so tricking was birthed out of this idea of combining various tricks perfectly. And then flips came into it. And so what they'll do, they just have flat ground. You often find them in like gymnastic centers. And they just link together tricks, but with loads of kicks and spins. So it's not like a gymnastics floor routine where it's all upright and, like a triple backflip. They will do shit like that, but they will mainly be doing like combinations of like techie kicks and stuff like this. And so there's a guy who is really killing me. That I think his name's like Iomo. No, I'm not going to try. But I think he's so sick. And there's just something about the Japanese guys that do it, because a lot of the Japanese trickers, there's a few that moved over into parkour. And just the way they dress, because Japanese people tend to have very good fashion. If you've been to Tokyo, they all dress so well. And like, so when they do stuff, it just has this steez that looks different. And I don't really know what my point with that was, but it's just something in the way that they dress and the way that they move.
The movements.
God, I'm going to try and find this guy. Yeah, and it just like accentuates it.
I typed in Japanese trick. I typed in Japanese tricker and I tried to find the name, and I'm not even going to tell you what popped up on my Google search thing.
You got to be careful with them Googles.
It was ridiculous, but I feel like people like that would be interesting in skating too, because I don't know if you watch much.
That was the point.
Yeah, I don't know if you watch much wizard skating stuff, but there's a guy, Leon Basson, he's a Canadian guy. Oh, he's not actually Canadian, but he lives in Canada now, and he has put like certain little kicks in his skating as well. I don't know if he had any like kind of karate or any type of background, but he has put like type of moves like that in, and it looks really, in my opinion, looks really sick too. And I could imagine somebody who does that for, as a hobby or whatever.
I think that was kind of the point I think I was starting to make, and then I derailed. But like it'd be interesting to see guys that can do really good trick in rollerblade, because they so you do this thing in rollerblading called a I don't even know what you call it in rollerblading, but it's called a double leg in tricking and in parkour. So it's sort of like you have different names for everything. So a misty flip in parkour is called a side flip, and so a D leg or a double leg is like where you jump and you whip your legs in front of your face and you land. So Eugen Enin does one in, I forget what video it is. I think it's the one with like some Daft Punk music. And he goes down his stair set where he sort of turns, jumps, swings his legs around his face and lands. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you know what that's called in rollerblading?
I don't think it has a name in rollerblading. I don't think it's really like made its way into our sport yet. Eugen probably done it. But
that's what I mean, man. Yeah. That's what I mean. So it's like that whole thing, like that style of trick has 10 fucking thousand million variations off of it. So like you could do that and tuck different and add an extra spin. There are so many different tricks like that. So if you got a tricker, trickers would arguably be better at it than parkour if you wanted that sort of flippy sort of thing. And like they would be able to do insane, because I've thought about trying to huck a few, like you see roller skaters do aerials every now and then, which is where you kind of like duck down and swing your legs over. But I've been thinking of hucking some of them because I can do those on concrete. So I was like, I'm going to try them on blades at some point. But I've only seen, like Eugen and a couple other guys do like some quite, I would say, rudimentary tricks. So like that's level 1 of tricking. And there is like 5 other levels where they go insane. I could geek out on this for a long time. But yeah, there's like guys that do insane shit. And I think, that could be a very cool angle. I would try and send you this video of this guy. But he's like known for being the best tricker on earth. And
I'd be interested to see
mad to watch that.
There's for years, decades, there's been just skaters only doing stuff with their feet on a ledge or a rail. It was the same thing for like 15 years or something like that, or 20 years, until people recently started incorporating other things in it. But like you could use other parts of your body in different ways. You use your arms and legs in different ways. The angle that you put your feet, your legs in the air, like it's all, there's so much shit. Yeah. And I want to see, even with your skating too, like to incorporate your parkour with skating also, like learn the tricks, obviously learn how to grind and stuff like that too. But like, I know you're not going to be scared to do it, but I would love to see what you come up with putting your parkour into skating as well.
I finally found the name. His name's Shoshi Iwamoto. So he's someone to check out. But yeah, I definitely want to do that where it's like, I know I got to a decent level with parkour probably like 5 or 6 years ago and then injured myself bad. So the stuff I was good at is like power parkour moves, and there's a little bit of overlap for rollerblading in what that can do, but that's mainly stuff that rollerbladers do. So the thing I would like to get better at is tricking, and that's what I'd love to really bring. But to be fair, like vaults and stuff, I've been thinking about trying some of those. There's like cool just spinny vaults where you like spin on your body and shit, and you can do that in blades. I just haven't really it's kind of scary doing a vault with wheels because like you normally stop, so like you do like what do they call it? Like there is a gymnastics term for it. I don't know. So when you jump and take off, you kind of like hit into the ground and then take off. It's like a punt or something like that, isn't the name? But you can't do that on blades because you're just constantly moving. So it's like a bit different. You don't get this sort of like stop, push. It's kind of like a constant thing. So there's more of a chance when you're vaulting, I would guess, that you would slam your knees into the wall, unless you've just got the technique down properly nice. So yeah, it's gonna be a little while of like, I really want to learn how to rollerblade from like get good at just movement, because this was the thing when I was chatting to Air Dolphin, he was like explaining there are guys that can hit these big handrails that can't really rollerblade. Like they can rollerblade, but they can't, like, they're not like cruising and they're not like super in control. And I'd really like to just get the backbone down well before I get too insane. But then saying that, the other day I was like rollerblading at a park and I saw this transition where it was like a half pipe that was probably about my shoulder height, and then there was a flat top for like maybe 2 feet into another half pipe. And so I was just like gunning it. I was just getting really confident that day, going like, like running on rollerblade, like when you start like sprinting almost.
Right. Yeah.
You do that side step. Would you call it a crossover? I love that. That's just such a fun thing to do. So I was doing that and I was going really quick and I was hitting this half pipe just to try and jump up. Like that was the first time I'd ever jumped up onto a half pipe. But I did it and I fucking flew. And I was like in the air and then I landed. And I was like, I could genuinely see myself transitioning this. Like if I can figure out how to hit the land in the other side and not like slide straight out, I was like, yeah, I could see myself doing that. So shit like that, parkour is probably going to give me a bit of a head start because I know I could jump it. So there's a good chance I can probably do it on blades if I know how to manage the landing, you know?
Yeah, there's so many. It's like endless what you could do with it. I love seeing people do Kongs. Is that what it's called, a Kong?
Yeah.
I love seeing people do that. I know Damon does like 360 Kongs stuff, and
yeah.
I don't know if you know. I think you know like who Matt Ledoux is, like a Canadian parkour person who does skating also, and he used to do a lot of Kongs on parking garage, like talking about the roof to roof stuff, like parking garage, like one level to the other level, doing the Kongs, and that's
he's
awesome.
He's the originator crossover, bringing like the parkour to rollerblading. He was
the OG of that.
Yeah, he's sick, man. He was in a video called Concrete Circus, which I don't know if you guys would have. Oh, yeah, you did see it. Sick.
Yeah.
So it was like, actually, that's funny because Eugen's video, wasn't that called Concrete Circus?
Yeah, it was inspired by that. From what I was, from what I read, it was inspired by that. I think.
That's sick. Shit, I just put that
just click.
But just click. So like, he was sick, and I remember like in parkour, people knew about. That was probably an early person I knew about rollerblading because I do remember some people sharing his videos around. And I was like, oh, this is cool.
Oh, Matt
Ledoux. He would do stuff like. Yeah. So people would do stuff like Kong. He would do like Kong precisions, we would call it. So it's like Kong land on something else. He wouldn't do it, I guess, to like with a considerable gap. He would often do it on like, so say you got a wall here, and then you've got like a flat wall there. He would just drop down. Whereas like people will do in parkour really big level ones, obviously because you can land on your feet. So it'd be interesting to see a big Kong precision done on rollerblades where you have a flat landing, so you could vault it as a big gap in between, and then you land and roll. That would be sick. And then stuff like double Kongs. I've never seen someone like hit a proper double Kong on rollerblades where
I don't think I've seen that either.
Two walls. Yeah, 2 walls with a gap in between. So like maybe I think I've seen Damon F or Damon Frank, whatever his name is. I think I've seen him like do it on like a flat top thing where he's like double Konged like that, but it'd be really interesting to do it with like a gap in between because there's a lot that can go wrong in that. Like if you don't hit it right, you're just going to land into the wall. So that would be like sick to watch.
Yeah. Wow.
There's a lot of core in that to keep your legs up with skates on your feet, like the weight for a double Kong.
Oh yeah, it would be. Yeah. And then what else you could do? I've never seen someone do a. Say again.
I was like, you want to hit that, you got to spend a lot of time on the pull-up bar. You got to get the upper body proper for a double Kong. Oof.
Well, to be honest, double Kongs are just momentum. So, like, double Kongs are very easy to do. Like, you could probably learn it in a day in a gym. Like, if you go to a gymnastics center, you'd be able to. Most people do. You just set up a block and you send it because a lot of it is momentum. But where it becomes, it's just really. I had a phase probably 5 years ago where I'd like send double Kongs. Everyone did. There's always these phases in parkour, and I'm guessing it's probably the same in rollerblade, where like there's a hot move for like a year. Everyone does this one move. I don't know if you get this, but there was like double Kongs. There was a time where everyone was just doing Kongs. It was like parkour would figure out, there's this new thing. Let's see how far we can take it. And so double Kongs just started getting hit a lot, and I was doing a fair few of them. And it was just a mental game because honestly, it is just momentum. It is not really strength. It's just run, hit up, get your hips nice and high, and then you're flying. But that gap in between and all that can go wrong, and there's the thing with them, there's no work up to it. So in parkour, a lot of the time, you have some sort of prerequisite. So you could do like a thing before the big thing. So it's like, I don't know, maybe you've seen...
totally.
But the thing is with rollerblading, you don't... Maybe you have it, but like committing to a grind, you've got to commit to the grind. Actually, no, that's a lie. Because I watched your video where you were like standing on the rail and then you were putting a hand up onto the rail.
Oh, nice.
Inside out.
There's a workup. Video. Thank you. There's some workup things in blading you can do. Some things, some spots, you just got to do them, and you could warm up in whatever other way. But like I'm completely relating to like everything that you're saying in this. Like not only like the workup, but also like there are moments in skating where like that's the hot trick. You know what I mean? I think that's Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's like the thing. Yeah,
totally.
So like, I would see double Kongs as being sick on rollerblades because in theory you could go further. And the biggest one that ever was done was by a guy called Toby Sager. And you've probably seen the clip because it's like a viral clip from like 2012. And he did it over... This clip's a joke, man. It's like he did it over like a 20-foot drop. If you just type in Toby Sager double Kong, it will come up. And he like did it over like... Probably not 20 foot. It was a tall drop. And big, thick walls. It was massive, super high stakes. and he just sent it outside, and it was like never beaten, and that was done probably like 2012, I'm gonna guess. And like, yeah, that's something you could see being done on blades, but you'd in theory be able to do it further because you go a lot quicker. So that would be mad, but a lot will go wrong. There'll be a lot of bodies on the journey toward the biggest double Kong ever.
I just looked up that
That's
double
true.
Kong. It's insane. I can't.
It's just nuts.
The face gets me every time. Like if you mess up and just rock your face on a Kong, let alone a double Kong with a 20-foot drop, like that's insane.
Yeah. I think have I ever bailed a double Kong? I can't remember. I don't think I have. Not outside. I've bailed them in gym, and it's fine because it's like a soft block. But outside, you don't want to bail them. I've seen people bail them. It's just nasty. It's such a horrible. It's a face to a concrete wall.
That's why I'm like, I have so much respect for people who do that, especially when they do them on skates, and like how Damon does them. He does them on ramps where he's going like way faster, you know. So much respect and much props to that.
It's all right if you do it to like a flat top, because there is a sort of bailout where you can kind of like go legs to the left. So like a good one is just clean, like legs through. But if you're bailing it, you can kind of go legs like around your arms and stuff. So you can bail out of it. It's harder though if you're going to something thin. So if the wall you're Konging to is thin, that's really hard because you've got like a specific bit. Like people have done big ones on rails. So like you have 2 handrails and people have vaulted. Bro, the level that parkour got to is just fully nuts. Like people do front flips landing on a thin rail from a rail takeoff. It's like the level of like precision is insane. And the thing I would liken it to in rollerblading is like the precision you have on certain grinds. Like I see this one of Nils Janssen doing this big clear. I don't think he ever landed it, but it was like an ender clip on one of his videos. Done this big clear down a big stair set and then land in a grind. And the level of fucking precision he must have had to hit it so many times he never landed it. But like that's probably a similar type thing as to like flipping to a handrail and parkour.
Yeah. That's more relatable for us too, because when we do, it's called a disaster in skating when you jump really far to a grind on a rail, but like you're only jumping to like a 2-inch space on your skate to like a 2-inch rail. And the same thing in parkour too. You jump on that, you have to land on your foot, but you're still like, you can't land on your toes really, because you'll just case your Achilles tendon or backwards or vice versa, whatever it is. Yeah,
there's such little margin for error. Like what happens, the most common is that you call it like a shinjury. So it's like, you probably have the same, I'd have thought.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, you know that. You would just, you just shin. Because that's the thing, I've been trying to learn how to soul grind. And I've hit a few now, but like I want to get shin pads because I just like, I've tapped my shin and I've been like, I can see where this is going.
Yeah, shin guards are definitely good for learning how to skate. And like anybody who's seasoned in skating, our shins are just like, like a mountain range, from all the years. Comes part of the territory.
That's well funny because that is the same thing in parkour. It's like your shins are just this like scarred. Like my mate, like I've seen them where you could see the bone. Like people have had such bad ones.
We've done that too.
Like
what a stupid part of the body.
We need some meat on those shins. You know, why did they design us like that? Why are we designed this way?
Ridiculous.
Let's get some meat on these shins.
Yeah. I also think this about the fucking ankle, dude. It's like ankle is your point of contact to earth, and it's this flimsy fucking blow in the wind joint that can just pop out. And it's like, why is my body so strong? Like, why is my core, my hips? You're not gonna pop a hip out very quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Stupid. I mean, I'm not trying to blaspheme. You know.
Humans will evolve eventually with all these sports coming out. Maybe a few 100,000 years we'll have like ankles, like huge, big ankles, and we'll be like, there you go. Skates are gonna have to get a bit wider.
But that's the thing, man. Do you not think? Because I have this chat about the metaverse a lot, and that's a trendy chat. Do you not think like? Do you not think that's like that's shit at that point? Because it's like what makes things sick is that it's hard. So like if the human body is like just a tank, it's no longer cool. It's like, well, of course you landed on your fingertip. Your fingertip's made of like
that's true.
Robot blood. I don't know, just some shit. Whereas it's like, I don't know. You kind of need the limitations to make stuff interesting, I suppose.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You definitely do. Yeah, it'll be like that, like reminiscent era, like kind of how we are now about the 90s. It'll be like, remember when there was there was risk in these actions. Ha ha ha.
Before
completely different
legs.
Yeah. And like when we're in the fucking metaverse, it's like, oh, cool. Yeah, you landed on the moon. Sick. It's like, well, you know, I don't know. I'm not looking forward to. I think the metaverse is. I don't see it happening, man. Like, bro, like my television, like Alexa doesn't understand me. If I say something to Alexa, she's like, "What was that?" So, and you're trying to tell me I'm going to be living in this computer? I don't believe it. I don't believe technology is anywhere near that level.
Yeah,
I can't work the remote to my television.
And there's still going to be like even if it does get to that point, there's still going to be like the people that are so detached from it, like living out in the sticks that just it'll be I think if it did go into practice, I'd be one of those people. I'd go like, you know, more toward the human side.
It just seems boring to me. Like, I don't know.
What seems boring?
The metaverse. It just
the metaverse seems boring. I thought you were going to say not living in the metaverse is boring.
No. It just seems too, I don't know. It's just too good. It becomes crap. Like, yin and yang. Right. You need good and bad, man. You know, come on, this is my parkour spiritual background.
No, exactly. It's like that Twilight Zone episode where like the guy gets everything he ever wanted and then he realizes he's in hell, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta be careful about that stuff.
The most important lesson I learned as a kid was watching Fairly Odd Parents, and Timmy Turner wished that it'd be Christmas every day, and then it was Christmas every day, and by the third day he fucking hated it. So there's lessons to be learned.
Exactly.
Christmas every day sounds like hell for Christmas every day sounds like hell for an adult, because I feel like every adult hates the holidays now. Yeah, it's so much work.
Yeah, you weigh like fucking 20 stone and you're eating mince pies every
your bank account's like, empty.
It ain't all it's cracked up to be.
I guess we're gonna open it for questions soon. I know there's one other thing I wanted to talk about, Billy. I don't know if you had anything else before we move on to questions or anything like that. Let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Blank. Everyone check out the new Sean Keen Blank skate. Give them a follow on Instagram at Blank Rolling Products. Check them out. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Thank you for your support. One thing before we open up for questions, like we say every episode too, the super chat questions we prioritize super chat questions. We split our super chats with our guests, so keep that in mind as well. And we also have our Patreon questions to get to also. Yeah, get that money going. Get those pounds. Get those pounds for your boy Jimmy the Giant.
The conversion rate might change it, but
it will change a little bit. We get all types of currencies in this, though. We get New Zealand dollars, we get pounds, euros, yen. We get it all.
It's out of control, the money flow. Yeah, it's just nuts.
It's crazy.
Maybe in the metaverse, we're all using Bitcoin. It'll be a lot easier.
Yeah, it's all Ethereum and Bitcoin.
One thing I want to get a place next to Snoop Dogg's in the metaverse, so we gotta.
One thing I wanted.
Leon 25 will be a joke in the metaverse.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Be the Leon 5000.
125.
Yeah.
Leon 5000.
Sounds like an album, like a new rapper.
It's a good band, actually. That's a really good band name.
Leon 5000.
That's a sick. I'm writing that.
Write that down.
I was going to ask you, so I know you're on a bit, but it just come to my mind. But there's an old thing in rollerblading, and I can't remember for the life of me the name of it. And you might be able to tell me. It was called like "I'm at your spot" or like "I match your trick" or something. It was like a protest. I am YTA. God damn. I am YTA. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I just wanted to remember the name of that because I wanted to look into that for a video because that
is very interesting. Yes, that whole story behind it.
I am YTA is it would make it easy for you to remember. It's I match your trick association. So it's
I got I match your trick. Like when I was trying to think about it, I was like, I match your trick, but it's the association.
And if you're gonna do a video or something on it, contact John Julio. He was the guy behind it for the most part.
I tried to, but I think he's like he's
the busiest guy in the world.
He's a busy boy.
He's a busy guy.
I tried to get hold of him. Yeah. So he'd be cool. He's sick. I got into him recently. That was the thing. I did this top 10 list, and I was like quite aware that I'm definitely gonna miss loads of people. But when I found him, I was like, fuck. And him and was it Dustin Latimer as well?
Oof, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, how the fuck did I miss those?
I mean, you can make a new extended version of that, but that was extremely interesting too to see who you thought, or not who you thought, but who you found the most interesting skaters. Being somebody who was so new to skating, it didn't really know that much about it because you don't really know how hard a lot of things actually could be or are, and to see generally, I noticed that you like style, which is I guess makes sense because if you can make it look good to anybody, it's definitely helpful in that sense. But yeah, a lot of parkour influence in certain people, and a lot of people who seem to go big and style, I noticed, was like the thing that you enjoyed the most, which all makes perfect sense.
I think that and like because I've been getting into the them skates videos as well, and when you watch those guys, it's like it's kind of interesting knowing that they were like big huck boys, like they used to send stuff, and then now it's more some big stuff, but it's more like style and shit.
Yeah,
it's interesting. A lot of sports have gone in that direction actually, like skateboarding. I mean, a lot of them have been focused more on style in like the last 10 years.
Yeah, I feel like your top 10 list was on point though. By the way.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Oh, wicked.
No, almost every person you said, I was like, that's a very good choice. Excellent choice. Like, really good.
Yeah. So, because I wanted to try and do new gen and old school, because obviously you could do like an old school list, or you could do a new gen.
Yeah.
But I was just trying to do a couple of people that I thought were like, like good.
It was a healthy mix of people.
One thing, because I always get flack for this if I don't like talk about the women, but I was curious, like, who's the best female rollerblader?
Could be a controversial subject. There's a lot of good female skaters out now, especially with the help of the internet. There's a lot of women in like South America and Europe that are absolutely killing it, and Asia. There's a lot of Japanese girls. I mean, in the United States, China is one of the best street skaters, or even Park. She's killing it. There's Mary Muno.
I think that's it. Mary
Munoz is really good. There's like she's been super active, and she's one of the best female skaters out there for sure. Fabiola de Silva, who's like an old school rollerblader, she's still going, and she's like, I think just turned 40, and she's still active, teaching kids how to skate.
So she's from Japan,
because she was in the video game, right? She was like old, like you could play her in that rollerblading video game. And people were saying, she's still about. It's sick. The females have a different style, because in parkour they used to, and then it changed. Like you would always there was like a female style, and it often came from like a dancey gymnastics background, and it was very cool. It was very different. It was like, because we, like all the blokes would just do big stuff, and then the girls had this sort of different style. It's merged quite a lot now, but I was curious is there like do they have a different style?
That's weird. It's different for you, I guess, because you said they come from like a dance background, which would make them have a different style. But I don't think female skaters really come from a different background when they start skating. It's just they get into skating and that's it,
Yeah, I mean, I would say if they have a different style, it's not like distinguishable by sex or gender. It's more like distinguishable based on like the kind of style of skating you might be into.
Yeah.
So, for example, like there's a skater like Martina. I'm going to get killed at the last name. It's like Shrobdova, I think. Shrobdova. Okay. I think it's just like she's. Yeah. Okay. So she's from, if I'm not mistaken, Czechoslovakia, and she skates like a traditional, like a lot of big rails and like that, like kind of like early 2000s style where it's like big rails and stuff like that. And that's super hard. And then there are some girls that are like Kay Luz, who's on the them team, and she's been skating forever. She's like more of that like like the fashiony end, but like also skating street like in like a more progressive way. Like that's like a fitting in like the newer style.
I had a friend who like wrote this thing. I don't know if he's put it out, but he wrote this kind of like piece on parkour and like I forget the exact premise, and I don't want to butcher it, but it was something like where you're from can affect how you move, and it can affect how you move in dance. So dances are typically like you'll have a very Spanish way of dancing, and there's like there's like cultural. I think his thesis was like culture can affect the movement of the human body. So if you look at maybe an Italian man and how he might present himself and the way he might gesticulate, and then if you look at say a British woman, she might move differently to that person. And it's like he then sort of made the comparison with parkour. So he was like looking into how these different cultural backgrounds can affect your style of parkour, because we used to always say, that person has like a Russian style. It was always like by nationality. It would be like there's the Russian style of parkour, there was the Americans. I don't want to throw it, people get angry just saying this, but Americans back in the day were known for not being good at parkour. So it used to be the insult was like American style. They're now sick. I'll always say that as a disclaimer, but they used to not be. And then it would be like, the Mexican guys would like just do it in a different way. And so, yeah, I just find that stuff interesting. I'm very much a bit of a boff for that kind of thing.
No, we definitely have that. Like, I think you can objectively say that there's like a Japanese style
100%.
of skating. There would be more of a French style. I think if you bring it to the States, there would be like something that would be like at least traditionally like a New York City kind of style versus an Atlanta kind of style, which Atlanta has like a very specific history of its certain style of skating. And then LA as well, or SF skating is its own thing completely, just based on like the geography of like the hills and how everything is incorporating like a hill bomb or like going down. So it changes like the canvas of what you're able to do. And
so interesting, man. It's so
and Canadian too. So you look at mushroom blading, so that's like a Canadian style, like the more parkour incorporating, with a Matthew Ledoux, and then now Danny Beers like own. So I think so, and that's a really good point. I never
I find that so interesting, because I think it's like it's often very cultural, and it's like, what is your country into? So like maybe Canadians, maybe it's because they like have ice hockey and that's quite popular. So maybe the spinning on the spot could be from like skating. So like, I don't know, I'm just theorizing, but it could be anything like that. And I really find it interesting how your area can define, because it's like you speak to a New Yorker and they are so different than someone from Atlanta, like how they talk. So it makes just perfect sense that the way you would move would also be different. And then that's going to affect how you rollerblade. And then it could also be things like what you're into. Like as British people, we are into certain things. So like, and your architecture, that was the one you tapped on. So like British architecture defined a complete style of parkour. And it's interesting. And Americans have more of like a trick heavy style of parkour, like lots of flips. And that's because a lot of their spots are very just flat, and spread out. So in this is the kind of point. So in England, our architecture is so mushed together because we're such an old nation and we've built on top of each other for so long. So like London is the worst place on earth to drive a car because it's like designed for horse and carriage, and we've just whacked some roads there. And so like all our things are like built on top of each other. Whereas like America, a bit more planned out, a bit more laid out, and a bit more spread out. So when it comes to spots, you haven't got these walls that are close enough to jump between because they're so far away. But if you did a few flips off of this one, then did a cartwheel into another flip, and then now you're here, then you can do a flip off that one. So your architecture massively can just define how you use it.
No, absolutely. And just, it's, for example, like you were saying, and I could see this a lot with parkour, like especially in France and England, like it's so old, it's so close, and building on top of each other, so it provides a certain aesthetic and also certain obstacles being close to each other. I think if you could relate that in the States, it would be like something like New York City would be the closest version of that. That's why like the first grind, it's fascinating because the first grind in rollerblading was actually done in California, but a lot of people like refer to New York as like the birthplace of street skating because it would be like the place you can skate spot to spot and be in like this urban environment that maybe like the places in California you would drive to the rail or drive to the skate park or drive to a spot and kind of just skate there. But I think the Bay cities actually had this experience as well. But like New York City and like the Bay cities had the experience where they got to skate from place to place at the skate spot. So that would really help like develop their skating style to be a certain way because they were like actually having to kind of just be more I can't think of the word right now, but it's just like a jazz player would be just like very on the whim, like, oh, that's something to skate. That's something you can skate or something like this.
That's the thing in parkour. We don't have that same improvised approach. So that's a thing I really like about rollerblading is that I will stick my headphones in, listen to music and cruise around and just do what I see as it comes. And that's so new to me because when you do parkour, it's not based on momentum. So you're stood there looking at something. You go, oh shit, I could probably vault this and land on that wall. And so you're looking at it, you walk up to it, you eye it up and then you go back and then you run at it. Whereas rollerblading, depends how you do it, I'm sure. But like rollerblading, you can just be cruising around a park and then try something. And that feeling of like, to me, it's more of like an in the moment thing. Whereas parkour, there's like elements of being in the moment where you like do this one thing and you have to be incredibly present for that. But in rollerblading, it's kind of a constant thing, especially what I do is mainly at the park. So I've not like done street skating, so it might be different. But that's something, just notably different is that feeling of just flowing and like constant motion as opposed to standing, looking at something and then doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that makes sense. That's it's so fascinating. Like it makes sense like how it would have to be premeditated in your approach too, like very like well thought out and planned out. Mm-hmm. Be more conducive in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. Did we lose Jimmy? I think he froze a little bit.
Oh, did we lose him?
Jimmy, you there?
Maybe I'll come back.
Hopefully he comes back. I didn't even get to talk about the one question I had for him after all that. We just went on like a tangent of completely different. Oh, we lost him for now. He'll come back shortly. He'll dial in.
Okay. Well, I mean, to be honest, holy moly, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes of this show, and I feel like I could keep on talking to him forever. What I would do is I would order some food and pull it up right here and just eat and keep on talking for like another 2 or 3 hours because it's I feel like there's so much to talk about, and it's really fascinating for us. Like I know some people were asking, oh, who is Jimmy, as he's not like historically been in our community, but he's done like a lot of fascinating videos like with rollerblading, and it's really cool to get the outside perspective. I feel like so much in skating, at least in the past, like we've been kind of just within our own perspective a lot of the time, and it's really cool to get like the outside perspective. Oh, he's back.
Welcome back. Oh, you're muted.
Now we can't hear you.
No, I got it. You're back.
Okay, we got you. Cool.
We bet, baby. We bet. Yeah, sorry about that.
Nice. So we want to get to the questions that some people laid out forth on our Patreon and we have here. But Austin, you had something specific you wanted to ask.
Yeah,
right?
I just had one point. I'm curious how much this relates from parkour to skating, because I learned this from one of your videos, and it's similar to us, how we never really had like an official name for what we do. It was like aggressive inline, and then we didn't like it. It was inline skating, rollerblading, but that's kind of not really it. And it's like blading, freestyle rolling, whatever it is. But I learned from one of your videos it was pretty similar too, because it was parkour, but I guess people couldn't really pronounce parkour. They started calling it like free running or all these other names. And is there like an official, is it just parkour now? Like if you guys decided on this, how did you guys decide on this? Isn't it? Yeah, how did you guys decide on this? It's like part of like your identity of what you do. And as skaters, rollerbladers, whatever you want to call us, we still don't officially have it. We have names that are somewhat right, I guess. And I'm just curious. You
should have just went with rollerblading. Like you should have swallowed your pride and just went rollerblading.
You think so?
From just my opinion, but obviously, but like from like a third person perspective, it's just, I think it is just seen as like known as that. So if someone says it, it's like, oh, rollerblade. Like you just kind of know. Or people do say roller skating, but skating's obviously the 8-wheel things. But I don't know. I think it's a strong name, rollerblading. And I think aggressive inline is too wordy. You just want something punchy and straight to the point. And the other thing that you got to think about is my English terminology is not very good, but like the plural, is that what it is? So it's like, well, what's like an individual who does rollerblading? A rollerblader. What's an individual that does aggressive inline skating? Aggressive inline skater or something like that. So it's like
too much.
It's a bit much, man. It's like, oh yeah, I'm an aggressive inline skater. Also, having the word aggressive in there is just a little bit like, all right, dude, chill the fuck out. Like, cool it. It's like, oh, so what's a skater? Like, a chill skater? Like, what? It's a weird thing to put in there. But yeah, I think rollerblading is just a good name. But that's my opinion. So,
how did it come up with?
I was going to say I agree. I just think the one point of contention or pushback among maybe a few would be that other companies, it's like calling like hot sauce tapatio or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like directly relating to like one company winning off of Q-tips. That being the identity, you know. So, Q-tips and exactly. So I think that would be the only. But you know what? Like you said, it's like at this point you can't even like fight it. It is what it is. Like, and it's just about acceptance.
So, like my perspective, just to give you like the sort of rationale, is that I have a marketing background, so my whole knowledge of stuff is from marketing, and I always just think like marketing first, because you just don't want to make it harder for people to like understand something. Like just the simple thing always wins out. So I know, I get the opinion, I get it, because you are just promoting a brand by even saying that. But yeah, I don't know, it just sort of works in my opinion. But yeah, so like parkour, to answer your question, so parkour, it's such a convoluted fucking thing. So it's like there's parkour, there's free running, and there's l'art de placement, which is like the same fucking thing, but for some reason they try and act like it's something different. Parkour and free running has more of a difference. So parkour, it makes sense. Parkour is A to B in the fastest time possible, whereas free running is from A to B in the stylish, most aesthetically pleasing way possible. So they are definitively different motivations for doing it. So it's like skateboarders, they skate street or park, but they do it to look cool and have fun. But then someone who's longboarding is doing something distinctly different for a distinctly different purpose. So there is something in that. So in the early days, it was like they are different. Like people did train it differently. But then over time, people would just stop being dicks, and they just like looked at each other and were like, actually, what you're doing is cool. I'm going to try a front flip. And then the guys doing the flips would look at us and go, oh, it's kind of cool how you land on the wall and stay on the wall as opposed to doing a flip on it. So we all kind of like squash the beef. And then now parkour and freerun is kind of considered, and I hate this way, it's so wanky. It's a spectrum, and that we all lie somewhere in the spectrum. You get some people that are more parkour, some people that are more free running. So it's a way of explaining it, but really people tend to, this is where there still is a point of contention, is what is an individual that does parkour. So that traceur, I don't know why the fuck, but for some reason in the early days they called them traceurs, which is like a French fucking word. So it's like, that's confusing. So why do you call them that? And no one, like, I don't want to be referred to as a traceur, so none of us referred to it as a traceur. No one used that phrase unless you're just a bit of a wanker. You might use that phrase. And then so over time it was like, okay, what are you? And so people were like, I'm a parkour athlete. It's like, that's pretty bold. You're an athlete, are you? You're just hanging out with your mates jumping on walls. So it's like, parkour athlete is one people said for a while, but it doesn't really, I don't think it works. So I use the phrase free runner because it's a good plural, like how I say like rollerblader is a good plural. But then some people are trying, Sestora, like the biggest team in parkour, we're trying to push the phrase parkourist, which I don't believe in. I'm not team parkourist. I don't think it sounds right. Like parkourist, just, it sounds like a tourist. Like, it doesn't sound right. And
that's what I thought too.
Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't. And the other one, parkourer, sounds like a pakora, which is something you get from an Indian takeaway. So it's like, we haven't got good options, man. But I think free runner works. But some people will argue I'm not a free runner because I don't do flips. So it's a conundrum, much like yours.
Wow, that's crazy that you're able to relate with that.
It's like it's so funny to hear like these similarities and like the conflict of like an emerging subculture like struggling to define itself. Yeah, like we are this, and then the conflict in that, and then just like the nature of like human just the nature of humans just having to have like a conflict or an enemy or like stand for something. I stand for. It's just it's very fascinating.
It's like you're in the group, we're out the group. It's like, why are we like that? I've heard it's because we often define ourselves by what we're not. So you'll sort of think, well, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not that. So I think that's apparently a psychological thing that we do. Like so it's a weird way of looking at it. So you would say, oh, I don't do flips, so I'm not a free runner. And then so that's where that kind of us and them thing, and then then it sort of spirals from there. But it is interesting, and it's like, I don't think it's settled in parkour what you call a parkour person. I still hear parkour athlete quite a lot, so that's quite common. And I hear free runner quite a lot, so I'd say it's that. But at the end of the day, they're usually doing the same thing. So it's confusing. Like tricking had it right, man. Tricking just named it sport fucking right. Because a person who does tricking is a tricker. Simple. There's no arguments. It's just like nice and simple. But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. It is funny. Like rollerblading and parkour, both in what it looks like and what it is, similar, and semi-similar history elements and like sort of similar squabbles. So it's like, sort of separated at birth, man.
Yeah, anybody who's starting a sport or like any kind of subculture like this, Please figure out the name first before you start getting other people doing what you're doing. Figure out the name first.
And don't call your brand the thing, because that's it. If the rollerblading company didn't call themselves Rollerblades, they would have probably got away with it.
Yeah, right.
They had to copyright the word.
Yeah, and you know, it's tough because like
that was a dick move.
for at least with rollerblading, it's ultimately skating. Right, like because it's like skating, ice skating. Take away the ice, it's skating, right? But skateboarding became such a big thing. So skateboarding is just like this behemoth, massive cultural phenomenon that's just like infiltrated every market, whether it be music or movies, film, everything, art, and they are like. There's no way we could be like, well, we're actually skating, so we're actually skaters, and you guys are more kind of skateboarding and pushing a skateboard. But like that, you know, that's like a even worse than David and Goliath thing. So we just gotta like kind of kick back and be like, you know, we're rollerbladers and exactly. You know what I mean? Except
on the door, this like mansion where you're fucking, you know,
exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Me, Sarah.
Actually, we're skaters. So
like, Oliver Twist moment. Yeah,
right.
That's funny.
We are like 2.5 minutes in this podcast, and I'm having a blast with it. Yeah, 2.5 hours into this podcast.
Minutes, fucking hell.
Having a good time.
Quickly.
But I feel like we should get to some of these questions.
Yeah, let's do that.
Oh hell yeah! Sorry, man. I can really just chat for a long time.
No, it's good.
Me too, man.
We're gonna get
great chat with you guys, honestly.
Yeah,
no, honestly, it's good. I was about to say, like, you know, New York people and UK people are good at chatting. So put them in a room together and you get a long podcast. But it's been a great chat so far.
Definitely.
We're going to get to
your favorite New Yorker? Sorry,
New Yorker. By the way, I love when you say New Yorker because I never heard that before.
New Yorker. How do you say it?
New Yorker.
New Yorker.
Oh, yeah. You kind of like blend the middle. Yeah.
My favorite New Yorker... Other
That's a weird question.
Yeah, maybe my brother Tommy is my favorite. As far as like famous New Yorker, that's really tough.
That's insane.
Lou Reed was pretty cool, and you know, Ghostface Killah is pretty good too. I like Ghostface.
Yeah. Yes. I was going to go for like comedians, but yeah, that's a good way. I was going to say even like Bill Burr.
George Carlin is great. I mean,
Bill Burr's from Boston.
Oh, okay, this is all we're getting a bit hairy.
Come on,
George Carlin. George Carlin.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, I did not know he was a New Yorker. Yeah. To be honest, when you say New York, I just think all of those kind of areas.
Yeah, so the whole Northeast.
Yeah, I'm like, that's probably similar, right? But they will kill me for saying that. So
we're very similar, but very different as well. Like, I understand that completely. We have very similar attitudes, and the way we act is very similar from like Boston to New York. That's why we get along so well. But
like in England, you pretty much divide our country into north and south. So it's like the southern people and London. London is kind of its own bag, but it's like the south and the north is the difference. Whereas I think in America, it's state by state, isn't it? So someone in like, I'm not going to try and say words just in case I get something wrong, but one state is different to another completely in the same way our north and south are probably different.
Yeah, it's pretty true.
Yeah, especially like I think, you know, like I have a lot of friends from the UK or Scotland and or Ireland as well, and they have like a very specific take on like the American attitude. And I think in the Northeast is like it's a bit older, so it has like those distinctions closer. Like, you know what I mean? There's more distinctions in the shorter geographical space. Yeah. But the further out west you go, the more I think there's of like that traditional American identity where it's like, you know, big parking lots, Walmarts, and like all these other things. Yeah. But
I think English people are jealous of Americans. That's why we say we don't like Americans.
I think so too.
Because I think we're envy. Like being honest, I think what it is that Americans are so confident and they love themselves. Whereas British people, we're quite quiet and we often hate ourselves. And so it's like we look at these Americans that are like, yeah, look how cool, look how great we are. And then we just want to be that, but we just pretend that we hate you.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. That answers a lot of questions, actually. But yeah,
I love Americans, honestly.
No, I had that theory too. It's funny, like you had like I had like some friends from the UK and or Irish friends, and they're always like, "What?" I'm not gonna even do the accent, but they're like,
I like that you tried. You got the tone, you got the note, and you were like, "No, I'm off."
I was like, "No, no." But they're basically asking like, why do like so many Americans say they're Irish when they're like 5% Irish or something like that? And I think even though that's not the reality of the situation, that might be like the perspective of the situation. But again, I could see that coming from some deep jealousy, and I don't blame them. You know, we got California. I mean, you guys have to deal with the winter. We could just get the hell away from that for a little bit. So I understand it. I understand it. So.
Yeah. I think when push comes to shove, put an American and British person together, they'll get along. But they'll pretend they don't. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think Americans tend to like British people though. Like just off the bat, they don't have any sort of
We don't shit on you guys like you guys shit on us.
Yeah. Well, you guys, we used to be the empire. We used to be the top dogs, and then the Americans did it.
You're like the skateboarders, we're the rollerbladers. You're the skateboarders.
Yeah.
I will say this. Americans really like the style of speak that people from the UK have, because it's just like a really like playful way with the language. And I don't think, like you said, we're a bit of a younger country, so we haven't had the language as long to play around with. And like my buddy from who's a Londoner, like I'm always like learning new words and slang words from, because he's just always with something.
Yeah. That's a cool thing, because we have a lot of like just different ethnicities that come to, particularly London. There's so much like shared language that changes, and because it's such a small place, like the language gets shared. So there's a style of English that's called like multicultural London, and it's just how people talk now. So like it uses a lot of like patois and stuff. So we have I think British humor often, I was thinking about this the other day, like a lot of British humor is very like word play. So like your mate might say something and then you think of a funny way of like reiterate, like spinning the way he said it, because one of the words could mean something else. And so like that's like we like sort of funny wordplay a lot of the time, and it's interesting you kind of pointed that out.
Yeah, like I said, like my friend Leon, like every time I hang out with him, I feel like I'm like learning a new word or a new slang word
every time.
We definitely look up to that, because it's definitely fascinating and cool. So
he's a cunning linguist.
Yeah.
That's it.
Let's get into these questions though, because we have a ton of questions. We're gonna get to the Patreon questions first. If anyone watching live has a question for Jimmy the Giant, you can super chat us. Half the proceeds go to our guest, so keep that in mind as well. Let's get on to these Patreon questions. First one is from Patrick O'Sullivan, who says, as a social media quote professional, how would he suggest we use social media platforms to better promote rollerblading?
Yeah, I think so. We were talking about that one.
Yeah, I think we touched on that.
Yeah, it's a good question though. But I think it's like there needs to be. So Air Dolphin does a really good job. There's a few people. Air Damon F does Damon Franklin. But yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, so like they do quite good stuff where they really lean into the format of the platform they're on. So it's like, if you're filming for Instagram or TikTok and you want to be big on that, you have to film portrait. So like if you're filming these widescreen stuff and posting it on there, or like square ones, I get why you do that, because you're used to filming widescreen, or if it's to promote a YouTube video, I can kind of see it. But really you want to be making the most of like the full screen. Like if your phone, my phone screen is fucked. But like if you're like if you're posting clips that are that length, right? Say you're posting a widescreen clip, it'll come out like there. If you're posting a square, it'll come out like that. If you're posting like that, it's going to be full screen. So when you're scrolling through Instagram, you're going to see full screen. And if you're using like the reels and using like the music that's popping and stuff like that, the algorithm promotes it. It just looks better. So that's one thing. And just make things short and punchy to the point. So like on Instagram, it's probably not worth having like a long intro. Like just get to the point. Put some, like Bobby does it really well. Bobby's reels are great. So like stuff like that. Air Dolphin does really funny ones, and they're really cool because there's a lot of personality to that. That's a lot more relatable to like outside people, because you're bringing in a second element. So like often how cultures become popular, it could be anything, but they often have like a bridging element. So like, I don't know, you could have skateboarding as a thing, Tyler the Creator music, and he embraces skateboarding. People can embrace the music. And so it's like a bridge thing. So like often having some sort of other element that's like a relatable, just human thing add that to the rollerblading, that brings people in. And then so that's Instagram and like TikTok, which I don't really do that well, and I don't really like. I can't be bothered with it. It's a different style of content. But then like I get how you do it because I used to work it. And then YouTube is all about clicky titles. So it needs to be clear and punchy and provocative. So like why this does this is usually pretty good. Like just be descriptive. Usually if like it depends on obviously the style of video. Be realistic as well. Like so say you're making some cool video that's just you skating, that's like an edit, like a VOD or whatever. Like don't expect that to get the same views as like Mr. Beast's video that's titled whoever leaves the circle wins $1 million. Like don't expect them to do the same, because one of them is very niche, whatever you've titled your rollerblading video, and the other one is very descriptive. So if you want to do the descriptive stuff, you're going to do better. So if you did a video which is like bombing, I hit 100 handrails in one day on rollerblades, or 100 handrails on rollerblades in 24 hours challenge, that video is going to do a lot better, especially if you have a really good thumbnail. It's very clean and simple. Don't overcomplicate the thumbnail by like putting loads of shit in it. Just like keep it simple and like just gripping looking, and that sort of thing is going to do better. So sort of challenge videos, or like maybe explainers on some sort of piece of history or something like that. Those things are going to do better. They're going to do better because they're like, there's that thing of what I'm saying, there's that bridging element. So it's like there's rollerblading and then there's a story. That's quite an easy thing to like bring to an average Joe. And so that sort of thing, that's probably the best I could explain that, I think.
You got to play the game pretty much nowadays.
You got to play the fucking game and be realistic. Like your video titled, I don't know, I always do this with parkour, like think of some wanky, whenever I have the same spiel with freerunners, I think of some wanky title we used to title our videos, which would be like, The Sun Will Rise Tomorrow, 2012. And it's like, well, no one's going to fucking watch that, because I don't know what the fuck, I don't know what you're on about.
It could be anything.
So yeah, it could be fucking anything. And like, yeah, when it comes to editing, keep it punchy. Don't be self-indulgent. Like if it just needs to tell the story, and like, just think about the person watching it isn't you and your mates. It's like a random person that's clicked on your video. So yeah, don't be self-indulgent, and like, yeah, kill your babies is another term people use when it comes to editing, like kill your darlings. So like, don't think a clip's too precious to get rid of. Think about the overall story more so than this one piece of footage you really like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely well said. A lot of good tips and advice in there.
Good advice.
We have a question from Will Hardy, also from Patreon, who says, I would love to hear his previous opinions of the sport as a true blading outsider who is in the action sport community. Also, what are his opinions now that he is more aware of the sport? Huge props on this one. Something out of the box, I'm sure, will be really interesting.
So opinions before I was into it. As I was sort of saying, like I didn't really know it that well. I had a few. So like the only one I can think of now are Matthew Ledoux and Daniel Ilabaka. And it was just like, I don't know. Yeah. What did I sort of look at it like? It seemed like maybe a fitness thing, maybe a little bit. It was like, I pictured rollerbladers as like guys that were kind of, not just guys, but like people that were just like going for long rollerblades down like the Sunset, like Boulevard. I don't know what that is, but like that's kind of what I thought it maybe. But then I knew there was like that kind of street skateboarding-y style of it, but I think I just thought of it as more of a fitness thing. And then now that so I didn't really understand it or know about it, and when I had seen it, I thought it was cool, but nothing really like gripped me other than the parkour stuff. But it didn't seem like something I wanted to do, I think. And then over time, now I'm in it. What was the second part? Like, what do I think of it? Like,
now that you're more aware of the sport, what are your opinions on it?
I think it's so exciting because it's like underground, and it's like got a defined culture, and the culture's very embracive, and it isn't bickery. Like, I think one of the things, like I was sort of mentioning it with parkour, is like, I don't know, it just felt like people just got a bit weird in it, and it was like, it was sort of arguments and shit that didn't need to happen. And rollerblading might have that, I don't know, but from the outside it doesn't seem as often that sort of shit might happen. So it just seemed like a cool, interesting community that was mature, let people do their own thing, let people think their own thing and approach the sport how they want to. And again, yeah, just like this sort of underground thing. Like I've always been one of those annoying people that like stuff when they're like, there's only a couple of people doing it, and then when it gets big, I might not like it as much. But like, I think that is something that is interesting, and it's just the stuff people do is insane, and so I'd say that's probably to answer that question.
Cool.
Yeah, that's really interesting hearing someone's outside perspective, even though you're kind of inside now, but still hearing both sides of it are really interesting. We're going to do one more Patreon question, then moving on to the super chats for people watching live. Last Patreon question is from Danny Keyblade, who says, "Hello, Jimmy. Which extreme sports have you not tried yet, but are on your bucket list? Thank you and Happy New Year."
That's a good question, because I mean, like, when you say tried, it's like I've had a skateboard and like I've had a BMX. I sort of had a little go at skateboarding a few years ago, and I got okay. Like I was able to drop in, I was like pumping ramps and stuff. I was enjoying it. Just never really stuck with it. I think because it's like so hard to get anywhere with the tricks. I did just burp there, and I tried to conceal it, but that was but so like I learned how to ollie and stuff. Yeah, I don't know, something about it. It just didn't keep me. So I tried that. I'd give it another go though, for sure. BMXing. I had a BMX as a kid. I never gave it a proper go. Mountain biking is one that I've done a little bit of, and I would like to do more of. I know it's slightly different because it's not like a street action sport, but it is an action sport.
It's not an
extreme sport. Yeah. I would like to try unicycle, but with no intention of doing it for a long time. Like I'd like to just go hang out with someone and do it for a day or two, but like it wouldn't be something I'd want to get into properly. But what else is there really? When I think, skiing, snowboarding, never done that. Never ever.
No
done
way.
That.
That's a good
one.
one.
Never done. Yeah, we have like a snow dome. Like, is that? I think that's the American phrase for it. For like
yeah.
Snow down, and it's like
snow down.
Yeah, freaking gnarly, dude. But I think I would try. I think I'd give that a go. I'd like to do a proper holiday for that. That'd be sick, because you can go to like the Alps, Switzerland, and all that sort of shit.
Yeah.
So I've been wanting to do that. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think I can't think of others off the top of my head that we would count.
That could be a cool little work trip. Go to the Alps. My first week on some skis or snowboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's this dude called Steep who's like blowing up on YouTube from this game called Rise Republic, and we're friends. We like chat now and then, and he's like proper Canadian. Like he's the funniest dude. Like when I was younger, like that's the thing when we like talk about different cultures. I didn't really understand Canadian. Like I just thought they were like, spicy Americans. I thought they were like
colder Americans. Yeah.
That's probably better way, colder. But like I thought it was like that, but like they're so funny. Like their sense of humor is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
He calls his he calls his like skis twigs. I can't do the accent, but when he just refers to them as twigs, like, I got some new twigs, bud. It was like just fucking cracks me up. And so I want to go hang out with him and go skiing. Do that thing, like the whole thing of do a sport in 1 week is there's loads of YouTubers that do that. A guy called Mike Shake, and like I want to do them more because they do well and I enjoy it. So definitely skiing. I'd like to go Canada for it, I think.
That's a fun one too. It's different from all these other things too. It's a winter sport, so it's a little more specific. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
We're going on to the super chats now. We have a first super chat from Stefan Brando, who asks, he says, big fan of Jimmy's channel, Starro, and Team Fat. Does he look at spots differently now that he also has started rollerblading?
That's really interesting. So I recognize Stefan. I think we spoke of it. So hello. Do I look at spots differently? So to be honest, I really haven't been doing parkour much lately. It's winter. So it's the worst time ever. And I've just had I've just done it for so long, and I made so much content on it. When I come across rollerblading, I just want to get into rollerblading like deep. And then like, I want to re-approach parkour in the summer because I need to sort out some stuff with like my ankles and my knees that for some reason don't hurt when I rollerblade, but do when I do parkour. So yeah, I haven't really done a lot of parkour since, but I can imagine I've been looking at spots like just driving past, because you always do that thing, even if you have like taken a break from the sport, you always do a thing where you just see stuff. You're like, that's a roof gap, that's like this. And so I spot more stuff for rollerblades now, because the town I live in is a very American style town. With the only place is Milton Keynes in England, which is like the only place in England that has a grid system. It's designed off the American system. Yeah, so we have like H and X and H roads or some shit, I can't remember. And yeah, so it's very interesting because it's always been shit in my mind for parkour. Like I've always there's a few things, but it's always like that kind of, I've always said this, if I was an American here, I would do really well doing parkour because there would be so much flipping potential because it's all laid out, it's all spread out. But because my flips aren't like amazing, they're okay, but not that great. It's been a bit shit for parkour. But then since getting rollerblades, I look at my town completely different. Like a stair set is nothing in parkour. Like that's just a thing you go down towards a spot. Like it's not something you look at as a thing. But now it's like a stair set as a thing. Like it's like, oh, I could jump down that. There was this one that's like I think it's like a 5 flat 5, and I was like, if I really gunned it, I could probably get that. It's like a big one, but it's that thing of like, well, I could literally do that on my shoes, so rollerblades as long as I know how to land, I'll be all right. There's also like rails down a stair set is again not something you really look at in parkour. You might do, but yeah, so it's sort of seeing stuff and slopes and like stuff like that. So if there's even just a little ledge, like I'll see like grinds before now that I wouldn't have seen before, but like sloped walls can be a thing in parkour, but now it's more like, oh, that would be really interesting on rollerblades because you could sort of go up it and down it. So yeah, I definitely see a lot more rollerblading stuff now because it's just there's a lot of things you can't do in parkour that you can do on rollerblades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get to take advantage of both kind of now.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. I can't wait for summer for sure because it's been so crappy. Like it's been so crappy this winter. Like it's so cold, so wet, and just not been able to do anything. So yeah, summer's going to be cool for that stuff. And hopefully I'll be better by then. I'll be good at all right at rollerblading.
Yeah, you got some time to train in the meantime.
Yeah. I'll be in the lab cooking up.
There you go. Perfect. Next super chat from Grivo, who says, love this. Happy to have caught it live. Love Jimmy's content. The algo truly knows what I like. So not a question, but just showing some love. Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Hey, big up, bro.
Hell yeah. We got a super chat from Trig from Ireland who says, this is very interesting. Know any deaf athletes? Deaf people do move differently, I think. Very interesting.
That's a really interesting thing. Yeah.
Know any deaf athletes?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So, yeah, so when I started parkour, there was a guy called Max, and I feel like I would have remembered how to sign something if I had a better memory. But, I remember he was deaf, but he could, read. Well, I think most can read your lips. Most deaf people, I think.
Right.
Know how to do that, or I think that might be wrong. I don't know, but he was really good at reading his lips, and I was very surprised to find out he was completely deaf. Like I knew he was deaf, but I didn't realize he was completely deaf because he could really understand you very well. Like it was never a sort of having to act different or anything. It was very natural. So I can't remember him having a different style to doing parkour. To be honest, I think it was just training with him was a bit different because you had to obviously get his attention, so you'd have to be in front of him. So it was just like that. But I don't know. I think he had a very now I think about it because this was literally probably 13 years ago. He was very into it in that he was almost in his own world with it, and that was quite cool because it's almost like when I go rollerblading with headphones in, I'm in my own world with it because I'm not hearing anyone talk or anything. So I guess he was probably able to tap into that quite well and just be really focused in because there's no distraction. So I did notice that he would go and do stuff off on his own quite a bit, whereas the rest of us would be at one thing. So yeah, I've not had too much experience with that, and I don't know anyone now. But yeah, he was cool, man. I really liked him as well. He's a good guy.
I got a picture being deaf and being really just zoned in, like you said. That's the perfect way to describe that. Probably super focused person.
Yeah, and now I think about it, actually, this could be a reach, but I remember he used to land fairly heavy. So in parkour, that was one of the things why you don't often see people wear headphones in parkour. It's sort of a little bit. I just remember people saying don't do it back in the day, which was, again, it was everyone had this is how you do parkour, so that could have been totally wrong. But it's the sort of thing in parkour, you're really trying to listen to how you land. So if you land really thuddy, you could do a sick jump, and if you landed thuddy and you slid out, no one would applaud you. They'd be you would literally hear vocal Like it was like because what it is,
smooth.
you kind of like you gotta be smooth, and you kind of know how that feels. Like when you land dirty, you're like you're it's like that guttural like oh shit, like that would have felt horrible. So I noticed he was a bit heavier with his landing, but then he was a bigger guy, it's very muscly. So like maybe it was that, but yeah, I wonder the relation to impact taking and control if having hearing helps that, because that was the argument in parkour. It was always like, yeah, don't wear headphones so you can hear how quietly you land. But I don't know. I think you can feel it, to be honest. Like you know when you've hit heavy.
That's super interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good question. I like that one.
Yeah, that was got me thinking. Man.
Yeah, we just have this one's no question, but there's a super chat from Stephen Wolp. Thank you so much for the support, Stephen. And we have one final super chat from Sean Michelson, who says, three of my favorite skaters of all time are Walt Austin, Rory Mellehem, and Colin Martin. Would love to know your first reaction to them, especially Colin. I don't know if you're familiar with any of those names. They're very specific people.
I don't know any of them. I usually, like, when people say names, I usually, like, might have heard of it, but I've not heard of any of them.
Yeah, Walt was like a bigger name, I guess, if you want to say, but Rory and Colin, they weren't like huge, big pros, so you probably wouldn't have seen them if you're newer to the sport, but really extremely unique. Colin's, I mean, both of them are, all of them, their styles are ridiculous. Colin Martin's style, though, is truly different from, I think, probably anybody else who skates. And he doesn't incorporate parkour, I wouldn't say, but he does incorporate a lot of unique movements to it. So.
Yeah, unique movements.
How would you find something?
I mean, they all have YouTube videos on it.
YouTube.
Yeah.
You know.
Those are because I tried typing in his name, but it's like there's maybe one video.
You definitely
was
could
he
on
in a
YouTube.
team or something?
I mean, there's definitely got to be YouTube videos of them on there.
Was there a video called Grombe?
He had a few tricks in there. I don't think he had a section, did he? I could be wrong, but he definitely had clips in there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll try and
leave some if you're watching this. Leave some in
I see what you mean. Like, he done this thing where he goes up a wall and then he's like nose manual down. Yeah, I'm not going to try and explain it, but it looks sick.
We can't even explain it, so don't feel bad. it's really unique and really awesome shit, and you probably get a kick out of watching people like that skate also.
Well, it is very cool, actually. I'm watching it now. Yeah, it's very I love the just different approach to it, because I really do love the kind of like hammer big stuff. Just it's always when you're new to something, that's always the kind of interesting thing. But
of course,
I do love seeing people that have very different takes on it. It's just like it's seeing the human body move in a fascinating way, and so it's cool. Yeah, it looks sick. I'll definitely check him out a bit more.
We have one more super chat that snuck in last minute. So this one's from Andrew Rice, who says, "Used to be an MK rollerblader back in the day. Check bus station ledges and the court rail for old iconic spots. Have you checked Billy's gaps?"
Oh, big up, man! What? That's sick. I reckon if I didn't say the word Milton Keynes, he wouldn't have put that in. So I made you guys a bit of money. I made us all a bit of money today with my Milton Keynes shout. That's sick. That's sick.
That's a drink. I was trying to figure out what MK meant. Milton Keynes.
Yeah, Milton Keynes. Yeah. MK. Yeah. So Buzzy is like I don't get it, right? It's controversial. It's a well-known skate park in our area. It's undercover, and it's
skated that
very
one.
well.
You made a video skating it, right?
I've been there too.
Yeah, I've skated there.
What the fuck?
Mm-hmm. It's like a long marble edge.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Where you got content of that, or is that?
Yeah, I filmed some stuff skating there. It must have been 2005 or 6, maybe 2007 or 8, around there. Yeah, a while ago.
That's sick. Yeah, because I heard.
I'll find it and I'll send it to you. Just because it's your. Sorry to cut you off the Zoom, but I'll find it and I'll send it to you just for the town, because there was a bunch of skate things that happened in that little plaza in Milton Keynes.
Oh man, that's cool. That's sick. I might. I should do like a video if I ever got good, like trying to attempt legendary rollerblade stuff that's happened in my town.
That'd be sick. That'd be really sick.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's gonna be impossible for me to do it, but it'd be cool just to like fuck around with it. Maybe if I learn how to soul grind, I could just do spam loads of soul grinds on like the spots. But that's sick that you've been there. Yeah. So like Buzzy, I don't really get why it's so popular, like famous popular, like in skateboarding it's popular as well. It's fun, but it's very like minimalist. Like I don't really understand it, but especially for rollerblades, there's like a couple of ledges, but I don't know. People, I've always said this, though, it's the sort of place when you're good, it's probably really fun because you can just focus on like hard grinds and shit. But it's literally, it's like one big flat thing, one thing over here that's flat with a little raised bit, and then like a little corner piece that has another thing. The guys bring their own stuff, like they bring some ramps and stuff, and then they'll bring like a rail to add to it. But I don't know, I don't get why it's so popular. But anyway, yeah, Milton Keynes, I like going there just to like work on my soul grind. But it's cool. It's so busy as well. Like, we somehow don't have a good park. Like, they've never built us a proper park. And this is like a big city. It's the second. Well, it's not the second biggest city in the UK, but it's a big city. And yeah, somehow we don't have a park. And yet you go to Buzzy and there's like 20, 30 people there on a busy day quite often, and it's not incredible. So I don't get it. But yeah, Milton Keynes is cool. I do think, like I was saying, because it's quite American, I've seen a lot of like stuff that I reckon would be really good, like when you're good at it. There's a lot of handrails, a lot of staircases for that stuff, but then also just like there are intricate things you could do, so you could do lots of styles there. So I'm enjoying it so far, but again, just needs a proper skate park because I have to travel like an hour to an indoor skate park. It's a bit peak.
Yeah, winters are tough too with that. Can't really skate wherever you want. It's kind of rough.
But yeah,
we come to the end of the super chat and the questions. JimmyTheGiant, this has been awesome. This has been an amazing talk. One of my favorites so far. I think everyone in the chat is loving it. Awesome. Before we go, is there anything you want to say before we take off here?
Yeah, just thank you for having me, man. It's like, yeah, it's insane to come into a sport and post a few things and people that are like legit sick, respected people in the sport be so welcoming and embracing. So it's been awesome to learn so much about it in such a short time. I'm sorry that my knowledge, like for people watching, they're going to be like, how the fuck do you not know this shit? But like, you know, it's sick to, yeah, just be welcomed into a sport. And I find that I just think it's such an exciting thing. Like, it's so exciting to find this sport with such an interesting history and like an interesting culture and just be legit as a sport. So yeah, thank you very much. Much respect for everything you've done and big up.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. We love what you're doing too, man.
And you know what? Hope to stay in touch. We'll talk about some writing stuff. That's cool.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, 100% down for that. Sure. Be wicked. Sick, man.
Jimmy.
Great chatting to you guys.
Awesome.
Peace.
Take it easy. Everybody stay tuned. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.